Holy crap.
People persist in doubting the evidence.
Don't run and hide. Don't be afraid. Don't turn away any longer. The truth will set you free.
If the game is rigged, change the game.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Game changer, game changer, game changer, game changer. The Game Changer Radio Network.
Turning all of our antennas towards Jimmy Church.
And now, your host, the captain of conspiracy, the prince of paranormal. This ain't your daddy's radio network show. This is Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
All right, how you doing, you Fadernauts? It's Fade to Black. Bespoke Radio for the masses. Today's Wednesday, March 25th. 84 days into the new year. 281 days left. We are live from the truthfunders.com studios right here in Burbank, California. Do you have a book, an expedition, invention, or paranormal documentary you need to get funded? Go to truthfunders.com. Truth Funders, the number one source of backing your project into the fringe. For KJCR and the Game Changer Network, KGRA The Planet, I am your oh-so-humble host, Jimmy Church. Let's get this show cracking. Welcome to everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black. I am fired up tonight. Courtney Brown, the Farsight Institute, and his latest project, Cydonia and the Face on Mars. Daz Smith, Dick Algire. Oh yeah, it's on. We've got a very special guest too that's going to join us tonight. Little surprise action going on. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's get this show cracking. You know what I didn't do today? You know what? Oh, I'll keep that a surprise. I don't know why, but I've been posting pictures of watches lately. I don't know what's gotten into me, but I have. So there you go. Posted one to Twitter. Follow us on Twitter. I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the junk drawer every day. I'm going to pull out something cool, and I'm going to take a picture of it. They're not expensive. Some are, but they're cool. So just check it out. All right? The banners are now up. So for COA Vapor, City of Angels Vapor, and the new Fade to Black e-juice, which is called Fader Loops, just go to jimmychurchradio.com. Go click on the COA Vapor banner. It'll take you straight there. Get you a little discount. Promo code Jimmy. It's right there. Free shipping. That's what you want to do. So go check that out. And what else do I have going on? The promo for the Studio Dome tweeters. I keep saying tweeters. Speakers. Bluetooth speakers. That's there. Promo code Jimmy too as well. Get you free shipping. $40 off. And I want to welcome all of the new sponsors to the show. City of Angels Vapor is a really big deal. So do go check them out. All right. And for all of your support with the Studio Dome SD1 Bluetooth speaker, just amazing. Thank you for that. And I'm telling you, if you have any issues with either company, just drop Fade or Not. That's all you got to do. Say, I'm a Fade or Not. All right? And they will get cracking. Yeah. Congratulations, by the way, to everybody that won passes to Contact in the Desert. Contest is over. The contest is over. But if you can't go, I mentioned this last night on the show. If you cannot go to the show, if you can't make it to Contact in the Desert, please contact us directly. The winners are Simone Mendez, Daniel Zukowski, Melanie Johnson, Jose Torres, Nancy Nurse, Donna Jadoin, Daryl Farley, David Cruz, Star Shaft, Greg Mellinson, David M. Lowe, Tammy Norton, Wendy Gridley, Michael Schmaggetz, Shelley Fuller, Eric James, Beth DeLapp, Status Unknown, Chuck Rao, and Scott Hunt. You have all won passes to Contact in the Desert. I know that Contact in the Desert has already contacted you. Okay? Now, also, tomorrow night is Fader night. If you have won passes, I would love for you guys to call in to the show tomorrow night. Tonight, Courtney Brown. I watched the video today, the entire presentation. We'll be discussing all of that tonight. All right, let's see. Oh, before I say let's get this cracking, well, and I'm going to get to the news here in a little bit right after the break. But History Channel notified us last night, late in the show, and then sent me a bunch of clips to Hangar One. We posted the first clip, which is from the premiere of season 2. The premiere will be April 10th. That's a Friday night on History Channel, not on H2. Oh no, we're swinging with the big boys. We're on History Channel now. If you want to peep out that first clip, go to our Facebook page, the fan page, jimmychurchradio.com on Facebook. Go there. Well, do you have to like the page to see the page? I don't even know. I don't even know how that works. But the first clip is there. Check it out. All right, they sent me about 5 or 6 clips of the first episode. So, we're going to whip one out every couple of days or so leading up. It's only 2 weeks away. I can't believe it. April 10th. Today is the 25th. So there you go. All right, let's get this show cracking. Today, Elton John is 68 years old. Elton John. Today, Aretha Franklin is 73 years old. Today, Sarah Jessica Parker, 50 years old. She didn't make it for Sex and the City. No, she made it for Honeymoon in Vegas. One of the funniest movies of all time. But so there you go. What I wanted to do, I'm going to break a little bit early because I've got a bunch of news that I want to cover today. So let's go ahead and do that. But let's light up Twitter. Over the last couple of days, I was leading up to today's show. When you have like Elton John and Aretha Franklin, the same birthdays. And I was thinking, who are the great singer-songwriters? Who are, male and female? And I was thinking about that today. And the list, it's pretty crazy. But when you start to take a look at it, there's only 3, 4, 5, on each list that are the greats. Elton John is one of them. And so is Aretha Franklin. Who are the great singers, songwriters of all time? Who are they? I want to light up Twitter right now. When you go and listen to Elton John, those songs move you. Aretha Franklin, those songs move you. Who are the great male and female singer-songwriters of all time? And you can it's a hard combination. It's a hard combination, but Elton and Aretha are right there, aren't they? So there you go. Let's light up Twitter with that. And let's jump into a quick break. You can email throughout the show, Jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Simple enough to do. You can also go over to our website, jimmychurchradio.com. You can click on the contact page, and you can email there too as well. If you do, just beware. You got to make it good, and you got to get it past the producers here in order for me to even see it. I get so many emails all day long, and the ones that get through to me, I'm just like, well, what else came in? Well, about 100, 200. I don't get to see those because they're not deemed worthy. You got to make it good. There's just too much stuff that comes through here. So make it good, and it'll get in here to me. You do want to follow us on Twitter @JChurchRadio. We do have hashtag F2BQ, and I'm looking over there now. Ed Powers just tweeted Chuck Berry. There you go. I'll go with Chuck. He's in a whole other category, isn't he? He's a singer, songwriter, guitar player. That's even rarer. That's like Stevie Ray Vaughan territory. You know what I mean? That's a whole nother thing. John Denver, Wilson Pickett, Dolly Parton, Gordon Lightfoot, Ed from the Fort, L. James Hogue, Wilson Pickett. That's a good one. Wilson's birthday was the other day, actually, wasn't it? John Denver. I played golf with John once. So there you go. Yeah, it's Billy Joel, Nina Simone, Les Johnson getting heavy on us. Yeah, man, Nina. I'll go with Nina. So there you go. The great the Carpenters, Richard and Karen. That's from Jaron Ski. Robert Hunter, Harry Chapin from Ziggy. There you go. This is Fade to Black. Fade to Black. Let's take our first break. Coming back with the news. Got a lot of stuff to cover tonight. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network, KGRA The Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Courtney Brown, Farsight Institute, and we will have a very special guest tonight joining us in our conversation. That's a surprise. You're going to have to hang out and wait for that one. It's going to be good, though. You're going to dig it. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Don't go anywhere. Don't touch that mouse. Do follow us on Twitter. Shoot me an email, Jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. I'll be back after this short break with all the news that you know nothing about. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I gotta tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. Doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil three-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Game Changer Network, KGRA The Planet, KJCR, KGCN. You gotta love it. Taking over the world. Lockstep with Race Hobbs. That's what I'm talking about. Tonight, Courtney Brown. Tomorrow night is Fader night, taking your calls all night long. Favorite night of the week. Well, besides tonight, Courtney Brown and his Farsight, the latest project from the Farsight Institute, Cydonia, and the Face on Mars. Pretty astounding stuff. We'll be discussing that all night long. Stay with us. If you are a new listener to the show, you're dialing in, you heard about Fade to Black, you heard about what we're doing over here. This is a long-form conversation. That's what we do here. Nothing is scripted. This is what you want to do. You just want to cuddle up to that radio, that speaker, that tablet, that laptop, that phone, whatever it is. Fire up a heater, get comfortable, get your drink of choice, and get your learn on. That's what this show is all about. It's fun. It's cool. Come hang out with the Fadernauts. Join us in Twitter, email. It's totally interactive all night long. And plus, we take calls. It's good. It's a fun night. So that's what you want to do. That's what this show is all about. All right. I'm going to try to take calls tonight. We have so much to cover with Courtney that, but if we can do it, we will pull it off. And the call-in number, as always, 323-825-5045. If you do manage to get through, just stay on hold. Stay right there. We try to get to them all. Okay? You can also Skype in Fade to Black 14. That's it. Let's get to the news that you know nothing about. The New York Times is now reporting the pilot locked out of the cockpit before Germanwings plane, before it crashed, was knocking and then pounding on the door to get back in. The cockpit voice recorder, this is according to the New York Times, you can hear that he's trying to smash the door down, end quote. That's from a senior military official involved in the investigation who told the New York Times, describing the audio from the cockpit voice recorder. Now, I don't get it. I don't understand why nobody was responding back leading into today. I was wondering why wasn't the tower, the controllers, the flight control, calling the plane and checking in once they saw the course deviation and the nosedive start. And now apparently they did try that. They weren't getting any responses back. Why would a pilot leave the cockpit and leave somebody in there alone? I don't get that either. Something strange is happening. And just like with MH370 and that U-turn and that disappearing plane, pilots doing their own thing. I don't get it. Something's going on here. It could be innocent. Maybe somebody had a heart attack. I don't know. But it's strange. A surveillance mission was exposed last week when a Predator drone crashed in northwest Syria while spying on the home turf of President Bashar al-Assad. U.S. officials believe the drone was shot down, but they haven't ruled out mechanical failure. Regardless, the wreckage offered the first hard evidence of a U.S. confrontation with Assad's forces. Interesting. Yemeni tribesmen have reported 3 cases in the last 15 months in which U.S. drones have fallen out of the sky, pulling back the curtain on likely surveillance targets. Air Force spokesman said they could not confirm any crashes in Yemen, but Air Force records obtained by the Washington Post show the dates match up with official acknowledgments of accidents that occurred in classified locations. Since January 2014, the Air Force has reported 14 crashes of Predator and Reaper drones that either destroyed the aircraft or inflicted more than $2 million in damage. 3 of the accidents took place in Afghanistan, but 6 happened elsewhere in classified or undisclosed sites. That's right. In November, a Reaper drone crashed in the Sahara while returning to a U.S. base in Niger. At the start of last year, a predator plunged into the Mediterranean Sea after conducting a secret mission over Libya, a rare, tangible sign of U.S. surveillance operations there. U.S. military drones are also based in Turkey, Italy, Ethiopia, Kuwait, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Djibouti. The CIA has secret drone bases, not so secret, in Saudi Arabia and Afghanistan. A new group of researchers are getting closer to bringing the extinct woolly mammoth back to life. Geneticist George Church, that's right, his lab at Harvard University successfully copied genes from a frozen woolly mammoth and pasted them into the genome of an Asian elephant. Using DNA editing tool called CRISPR, the scientists spliced genes from the mammoth's small ears, that's right, and hair and the color into the DNA of elephant skin cells. The tissue cultures represent the first time woolly mammoth genes have been functional since the species went extinct around 4,000 years ago. The research has not been peer-reviewed or published in a scientific journal, and I'm quoting here, because there is still much work to do, Church told the UK Sunday Times, but we plan to do so. The work is part of an effort to bring extinct species back from the dead, a process called de-extinction. The recent breakthrough shows that one proposed de-extinction method, which involves splicing genes from extinct mammals into the genomes of their living relatives, it just might work. But don't believe the headline suggesting the woolly mammoth cloning is just around the corner. Church explained to Popular Science, there's just a lot more work to do. We're getting close. Going to be crazy. Jurassic Park. Here we come. A researcher at the defense company Boeing has filed a patent for a sci-fi-esque cloaking device that will protect soldiers from intense shock waves generated by explosions. The just issued patent number 8,981,261 to Boeing envisioned stopping shock waves using a veil of heated ionized air. Such a shield would damp the force of explosions. It doesn't build an invisible wall of force, but rather makes shock waves bend around objects, just as some high-tech materials bend light and make things invisible. Brian J. Tillotson, a senior research fellow at Boeing, said the idea occurred to him after noticing the kinds of injuries suffered by soldiers who served in Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm quoting here. He says, "We're doing a better job of stopping shrapnel." Interesting. Though the armor plating on a military vehicle might stop debris from a roadside bomb from injuring a soldier, it can't shield against the shock waves generated by such explosions. The blast wave goes right through the human body and causes massive trauma. Interesting. Never forget that we've got more than one robot on Mars. While Curiosity might be busy finding signs of ancient life, that's right, Opportunity, which touched down in January 2004, has just completed the first ever extraterrestrial marathon. NASA confirmed this week that the six-wheeled robot has now traveled more than 26 miles. 26 miles in 11 years and 2 months. Check that out. Opportunity has already wildly exceeded expectations. The rover was originally scheduled to operate for only 90 Martian days. That's right. And apart from exceeding its runtime by more than 10 years, it's also made numerous scientific discoveries, including examining the first meteorite found on another planet and finding evidence that water once flowed on Mars. However, it's not certain how much longer Opportunity can keep going. Its twin rover, Spirit, that stopped moving in 2010 and pretty much has become a static research station. Opportunity is suffering from gradual decay that affects all computer systems. Its flash memory has worn out after numerous rewrites and writes and erases and so forth. And as a consequence, the rover is suffering from bouts of amnesia. 11 years. Incredible. All right, here's the news that's taken over the world. Jeremy Clarkson is fired. Jeremy Clarkson won't have his contract renewed as host of Top Gear, one of my favorite shows. That's right. He busted up a producer's lip, verbally abused him, and now the BBC has had enough. They announced today he's done. Clarkson has hosted one of the most watched television shows in the history of the world. He was suspended on March 10th after the British broadcaster, they called it a fracas with Asen Timon on March 4th. But Timon went to the hospital and said that he was stressed out. He had a busted up lip and he had been traumatized by verbal abuse. Today, the BBC released the findings of an internal investigation into the incident, and Ken McCrary, who conducted the investigation, said Timon had been subject to an unprovoked physical and verbal attack by Jeremy Clarkson at a hotel in North Yorkshire after a day of filming. And I'm quoting here, during the physical attack, he was struck, resulting in swelling and bleeding to his lip. The physical attack was halted after about 30 seconds by witnesses, but Clarkson continued to use derogatory and abusive language. And the BBC said, you know what? No matter how big you are and how good you are, we don't need you. They fired him today, Jeremy Clarkson. I think he thought he was untouchable. Outspoken guy, funny guy. I like his writing. And I enjoyed the show. But you know what? Everybody's got their limits. Maps, weather apps, social networks, and shopping services serve up a useful info based on where we are. We all do it on our cell phones all day long. But while everyone understands the privacy standoff of all of those location controls, few of you realize how often apps ping their location. Now there's a Carnegie Mellon study, and it's going to freak you out. That study by the university's Institute for Software Research followed 23 Android phone owners for 3 weeks. In the first week, they were asked to use their apps as they normally would. In the second week, the participants used an app called App Ops to monitor and manage data on those apps. And then in the third week, the research team introduced a privacy nudge alert that would ping the participants each time an app requested location data. Are you sitting down? Are you ready, Fadernauts? Here is the title. Here is the title of the study. The title of the study is Your Location Has Been Shared 5,398 times. A field study on mobile app privacy nudging. That's right. More than 5,000 pings in 14 days. Once participants in the study knew how frequently data was being collected, many adjusted their settings or deleted some apps entirely. It's in 5,398 times. That, my friends, is creepy. Chinese engineers have unveiled their country's first 3D printed car, and it looks dorky. That's right. It's 12 feet long, 5.5 feet wide, and they made it in 5 days. Chief designer Cheng Mingqiao said the two-seater convertible features high strength and toughness. The density of the material is much lighter than metal. It's only 1/7 or 1/8 as heavy. The vehicle is powered by rechargeable batteries and can reach a top speed of 24 miles an hour. And lastly, a giant tide on France's North Atlantic coast on Saturday enabled paleontologists to find hundreds of dinosaur footprints on a beach in the western region of Vendée. The 200 million year-old footprints measured about 17 inches wide and are only visible when the tide is low. They were discovered in 1963 by a local engineer and a chemist named Gilbert Bassonat. The Open-Air Museum of Dinosaur Footprints counts among the richest we have from the Jurassic era. France's National Hydrographic Service was expecting more than 15.3 yards of difference between low tide on Saturday afternoon and high tide in the evening. The trail would have been left by animals measuring between, check this, 8 feet and 9 feet tall. Incredible. You should see the pictures. All right, that's it. That's all the news you know nothing about. When I come back after this short break, we will be joined by Courtney Brown of the Farsight Institute. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Be back right after this with Courtney Brown. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hi, this is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Today, everybody, the Fadernauts and planet Earth is vaping, and I'm very proud to announce our very own e-juice. When we were approached by City of Angels Vapor about Fade to Black e-juice, I wanted to make sure that it was the very best and that the flavors were something that I could create myself. And we did just that. Introducing Fade to Black Fader Loops. This will take you right back to Saturday morning cartoons and your favorite bowl of fruity, loopy cereal. Just click on the banner or go to www.coavapor.com. Enter the promo code Jimmy for the Fader Not special. That's www.coavapor.com. Go back, Lee Tappy.
Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you. And your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Let TalkStream Live transform the way you listen to radio. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile talk radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And this is Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
We are of
the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Attention, all Fadernauts. Studio Dome has a special deal on their SD1 Bluetooth speaker. Just go to JimmyChurchRadio.com, click on their banner, enter the promo code Jimmy, and you get $40 off and free shipping on the SD1. It's voice activated, comes with a USB antenna, cables, and a carry bag. Never listen to your phone, tablet, or laptop speakers ever again. It's the only way to listen to Fade to Black. That's JimmyChurchRadio.com, Studio Dome banner, promo code Jimmy. Go back, Lee Tappy. All right, welcome back, Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Courtney Brown. I'm fired up. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Any questions for myself or Courtney, you can just hashtag F2BQ. Send it right in. You can also email Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio.com. Courtney Brown is a mathematician and social scientist who teaches in the Department of Political Science at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. Brown is the director and founder of the Farsight Institute, www.farsight.org, a nonprofit research and educational organization dedicated to the study of a phenomenon of non-local consciousness known as remote viewing. He has published peer-reviewed research on this subject in premier scientific outlets and has spoken internationally at a host of prestigious venues, including various universities as well as at respected gatherings of physicists. His recently published book on the subject, Remote Viewing, The Science and Theory of Non-Physical Perception, is the only book of its kind where the science of remote viewing is developed with respect to the highly structured data collection methodologies of the kind utilized by the U.S. military. In this book, he analyzes data and develops a new theory that explains the remote viewing phenomenon as a consequence of superposition formation on the quantum level. Tonight, we are going to discuss his latest research in remote viewing with Cydonia and the face on Mars. And we have a special guest coming in just a few minutes that's also going to join us. I'd like to welcome back to the program our good friend, Dr. Courtney Brown. Courtney, are you there, sir?
Jimmy, I'm here, and I want to thank you so much for inviting me back.
You know what? I can do a Courtney Brown week anytime you want, and we'll do it 3 days in a row, man. No problem.
Yeah, that's great.
So, okay, I don't know where to start with this latest presentation, and that's what we're going to be discussing tonight. But I will say this for all the new listeners out there. This is a long-form conversation. Courtney has been on with us many times. We previously covered 9/11, which was absolutely amazing. And we also did the Great Pyramid of Giza. And so it's like my favorite subjects. And I didn't know that Cydonia was coming. You didn't warn me. But this is, it's such a treat for us, Courtney, that you're covering the stuff that needs to be done. And I don't think anybody else would enjoy the challenge like you do. And I really mean that. And so going into this, and this is a long question, but it's also an intro to the to our conversation. Going into this, why did you pick Cydonia?
Well, look, Jimmy, you can also ask, why did I pick remote viewing? Remember, I'm an academic. I'm a university professor in a major university, but I do not do any remote viewing research there. I'm a mathematician, and I work in a social science program. But the area of remote viewing, I am unambiguously the leading scholar. Even though I don't do it in the university, I am the leading scholar in the subject of remote viewing as it is done using military or military-derived methodologies. And the real question is, you're asking me, why did I pick Cydonia? You might as well also ask me, why did I pick remote viewing? Because, Jimmy, even though the military program was disclosed in the mid-1990s, I am still the only academic on the planet that studies this stuff. So you can sort of ask, like, what is wrong with academia? But really, you can really say, like, what is wrong with the sort of the entire infrastructure of authorities? Not only are people in mainstream science resisting this information, but you can really ask, a psychological book needs to be written to understand this mass psychology of people in authority. And I'm talking not just governmental people of authority, but also academic people of authority and so on. So the answer to why Cydonia is connected to why remote viewing in the first place. I am an intellectual rebel. I love to do things that other people say are forbidden. I love to jump into forbidden thought. And so it was a especially interesting area because way back when the Viking probes went to Mars and took pictures of what looked like a face on Mars, I just sort of chuckled. I didn't really think it was a face because, heck, it was 3 kilometers from corner to corner. That's huge. Who would carve a face like the Sphinx into rock looking upward so that nobody could see it? That was 3 kilometers big. It just didn't make sense. Who would do that? Normally, if there's a society up there, they would be interested in doing other things to maintain the allegiance of their loyal followers. Just look at humans around today. The authorities, they are more interested in maintaining their own audience, maintaining their own base of operations than they are in speaking to destiny, to humanity, to an earth, hundreds of thousands of years into the future. It may be millions of years into the future.
Sorry, I was just reaching out to our special surprise guest. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. It's okay. But so the idea with, why Cydonia, the idea behind why Cydonia is really, the idea behind why Cydonia is really key, because when you're talking about Cydonia itself, you're really talking about something that was a bit of a circus, because what happened was the Viking photos came back, it looked like a face, and then mainstream media and mainstream science was totally silent on the issue. And then we had new photos coming in when NASA and European Space Agency, but mostly in the beginning NASA, sent new probes. And when those probes came back, NASA very quickly promoted the idea, and it was picked up by mainstream media, which had been ignoring the whole thing before that, that it wasn't a face. Okay, so it wasn't a face. It didn't look like a face. And so it was just like a magician. When you go to see a magician, the magician does something to the side, on the left, to distract you from what she or he is doing to the right. And so this whole sort of circus about whether there was a face or not was distracting from what was so obvious in the picture. The picture had very clear perpendicular and parallel lines. I mean, absolutely, the thing had a perimeter. It was like walls. And I said, it's clear as day in the picture. And everybody was saying, see, it's not a face, it's not a face, it's not a face. So it became very clear that the whole face charade was being used to sort of cover up the obvious, which is, hey, there's lines on that thing that shouldn't be there. And on the other side, they had a semicircle. So in my own mind, I said, well, they're actually quite scared about this. They really don't want people to ask questions about this, so they're bringing up the whole facing and distracting it with the face. We would not know if there was actually an actual sphinx-like face there, but we can actually very clearly see that there's parallel and perpendicular lines that are impossible to form, and by nature through erosion processes. So I said, okay, one day when I have a chance, I will have a project done with the best remote viewers on the planet to go there and find out what was there. But not only to find out what was there now, but what was there in the ancient past. So that's why Cydonia. It was a puzzle, but it wasn't just a puzzle. It was a puzzle with a magician's show attached to it. It was a puzzle where a great deal of effort was made by authorities to distract the public from what was obviously there. The authorities could clearly see those parallel and perpendicular lines. So to keep the focus away from that, you just broadcast everywhere in the media, see, there's no face, there's no face, there's no face. And then the media wipes their hands and say, dismissed, it's no face. And then everybody obeys. That's what humanity is like. They just go ahead and say, okay, it's not a face. We can go on to our normal day. And I'm sitting there chuckling, and I say, wow, what a very interesting psychological lesson to be learned from this. Look how easy people are distracted, and they can't see something that's staring at them in the face. Anyway, so now we know the whole backstory of Cydonia. We, at the Farsight Institute, that's F-A-R-S-I-G-H-T, like seeing far, and our website, we're a nonprofit, so it's farsight.org, O-R-G. We're the leading venue for these actually we're the only venue, but we're the major venue for these major studies, public studies in remote viewing using the methodologies that were developed by the United States military for espionage purposes, or methodologies that are derivative of those procedures. And we have many studies that we've actually done, and the viewers that we use are the absolute best on the planet, bar none. And so we have been working with Dick Algire recently, and we've worked with a great many viewers and still do. But we worked for these recent projects with Dick Algire out in Hawaii and Daz Smith, who's British. So opposite ends of the planet. They don't communicate with one another. They do everything, all the projects under squeaky clean scientific conditions, which means totally blind. They're given a non-leading email from me saying, Dick and Daz, we have a new project. We have a target. It's time to do your first session. And they do it, and they send it in. Now, there's been a change, Jimmy, between the way we do things and the way the military people used to do it. The military people developed remote viewing as it was done there with a paper and pen. They would write things down. And it was dreadfully boring to watch, but it was really good for them because then they could send the sessions across the intelligence community and people could just see it and they could study the pages and be happy with it. But, we don't live in an age like that. People want to see this thing happening. And so we decided in order to help convince people that this stuff is real, they have to see it themselves. So we started to video record our sessions. Now, we do it now with the viewers standing up in front of whiteboards and recording the entire thing. Now, at first we were concerned, is the audience going to, enjoy watching this? And then after we did it a few times, we realized that the audience was like on the edge of their seat. They could hardly believe their eyes.
It's riveting. It's riveting. It's riveting. It's absolutely riveting. Truly riveting.
It's amazing. In fact, we really learned how riveting it was because when we did the 9/11 stuff, we had basically almost 4 hours of material. And we said, we can't put this out on one DVD, so we put it out on two. And I haven't heard a single complaint saying that people were bored even for 1 second. In fact, what we do get is people saying, I bought these two things and I thought I'd watch the first one today and then a few days later I'll watch the other one. And they say after they got through the first one, they couldn't put it down. To heck with sleep. They just had to finish this thing. And so it's really, when you actually see, when you're watching it, what the so-called targets are supposed to be, what these remote viewers are supposed to perceive.
Right.
But when you're watching it, it's clear that they don't know and they're trying to piece it together. And then they come in. These are not like newbies, people that have just started remote viewing. These are the equivalent of Lang Lang with the piano who plays in front of Carnegie Hall. I mean, these people describe exactly what's in the target photograph and then the entire backstory that's behind it, the whole story. So you see them describe exactly what you're seeing in the picture and you say, oh my God, and your jaw drops and you just look at it and then you see them go into, what else is there? How did it actually get there? How did these buildings collapse in 9/11? What do you mean that the guys with the jumpsuits arriving 3 a.m, lacing the buildings with explosives? I mean, the whole backstory comes out. And by the time you're there, I mean, you have pictures. And by the way, these guys are good with drawing as well. Daz Smith is a professional graphics artist. That's how he makes a living. And Dick Algire, who was a celebrity newscaster for over 30 years, and he was the face of the news in Hawaii for over 30 years. He's now retired, but he's a great artist as well. He draws really, really well. And so when you see them actually do this, it's to knock your socks off. And then we added something else that had never been done before. We added green screen. So we said they were not only doing their sessions blind, in front of whiteboards and drawing things out and describing and facing the camera and explaining to them like they're at the target site in their minds and they're describing exactly what they're seeing at the time. And then we said, well, let's do this in front of a green screen. And so we started filming that in front of a green screen and then putting the target photos behind them. It's amazing. So we don't know the limits of how far we can take this, but do understand one thing. Everything you see on the videos is totally done blind. You may say, this is impossible. Nobody could describe this perfectly. They must have seen the pictures in advance. They knew nothing. Nothing. All they were told was with an email. They didn't even hear my voice or see my facial inflections.
Can you share with us what is in the email that you send to the two of them?
I just told you what it is.
That's it?
Dear Dick and Daz. Yes, dear Dick and Daz. We have a new project. We have 6 targets for this. Begin with target number 1. Do your thing.
That's it?
Bye, Courtney. That's it. The email is about five lines long, and that includes warmly, Courtney. And then that's 2 lines. And then dear Dick and Daz, that's 1 line. And then that's 3. So the other 2 is we have a new project. This will be Mysteries 12. That's what the Cydonia thing was. Mm-hmm. We have 7 targets. Please do your sessions. I think we didn't have 7 targets for this one. We had 4 targets for this one. So we had 4 targets. Please do the first one. Now, not only are they doing it blind, but they're also doing it solo. There's nobody in the room that knows anything about the project. So they're doing, we had to learn a lot to do this, Jimmy. This was no joke. If you see these projects, they're like the video quality and everything. It's so professional. People call us all the time saying, I want to speak to the secretary. There is no secretary. When you're calling,
right.
the phone's ringing inside my kitchen. I mean, we don't have a building. So when they look at the stuff, they look at the website, they look at all the projects, they look at everything that's going on. They say this has got to be like some building downtown Atlanta next to the IBM building or something like that.
Right.
And they don't realize that we learned how to do this all ourselves. So those two remote viewers, Dick Algire and Daz Smith, they're the camera guys, they're the audio guy, they're doing the remote viewing, they're setting it up, they're setting up the green screen, they're setting up the whiteboard. Do you get the idea? I mean, this is a lot of stuff to learn how to do for us all to coordinate it together. I've never seen such a small group of guys do so much. And it's fun, Jimmy. It's fun.
I have to say this, and we'll get the links up. Everything is posted on Facebook now, but we'll get the links up that'll take you straight to the presentation. But it's 3 hours, and it's not an hour long. It's 3 hours, and for us, for the Fadernauts and the people listening to this show, this is 3 hours of compelling, riveting, edge of your seat kind of stuff. And what I have found, not only with the 9/11 and the Giza presentation, but I found myself doing this today too, where I would, I'm going to skip forward 5 minutes, right? For whatever reason. And then you end up going, I got to go back. So you find yourself doing that because of the way that it is just so compelling. And so you can't skip what I'm trying to say. You can't skip over anything. You can't skip forward. You can't do it. You've got to go, and you got to nail every second of this presentation. It's 3 hours long, and by the time it's over, you wish that it was 6 hours. You wish that it was 9. It's like that. It is absolutely amazing. Now, I wanted to say this. In this 3-hour presentation today, I caught Daz and Dick. I don't know if you noticed this, but they thought that they were on planet Earth. You know that, right? A couple of times they slip and say Earth. They don't know. They don't have any idea. I think it was it may have come to them eventually. But as they were,
it did. They both started to notice and report. It's live on video that something was wrong with the gravity.
Right,
it's too light, and then the air is too thin. It's like either really high altitude or something. Yeah, and the sun is not quite right.
Yeah, and that comes in, and you see this evolve. And when I heard, I don't know if it was who said it first, but one of the two said, and it's affected by, it's the way that Earth but when you hear him say Earth, that's as they're developing this and going through the presentation. It just blew my mind. I'm just like, man.
Well, there's a little backstory with this, Jimmy. You see, the viewers always yearn for mainstream credibility. They always yearn for people to respect what they do. And so they've always been concerned about having targets done that were connected with extraterrestrial topics, meaning they didn't want that. So they were okay with the Great Pyramid of Giza. They're okay with an anomaly on the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. They're okay with the 9/11 stuff, but they basically said they didn't want to, do extraterrestrial targets because of that yearning. And I don't like rules, of course, and I break all the rules.
Right.
So, but I occasionally lie. And what I did to them with the 9/11 thing is they are so good that I knew that if I gave them a target to unravel 9/11, a project would have to involve about 7 some odd targets because I knew there was going to be a lot of complexity to it. And they would figure it out, the first target, that we're dealing with 9/11. They're that good. I mean, they'd see it, and they'd see the Twin Towers come down. So I had to lie to them for years. Don't worry, we will never. I think I did it on your show. In fact, when we were doing the Giza, what's next? And I said, well, one thing we'll never do 9/11.
You said that, yes.
I did it on radio shows constantly for years. I told them in emails, don't worry, we're never doing that. I mean, until it finally sunk in, they really believed we would never do 9/11. So when we finally did 9/11, which I was planning on doing anyway, throughout the whole thing, they were saying, but Courtney said he would never do this. And it was on radio and everything. This kept, and so they kept in doubt. And because they kept in doubt, the remote viewing came in pristine. So with regard to the Cydonia target, I did the same thing. They were always skittish about doing UFO extraterrestrial targets. So I said, don't worry, I'll never do that. I don't want to lose you guys. I don't want you to quit. So I'll never give you extraterrestrial targets. And so when I gave them this thing, and this actually was one part, the Cydonia thing, of a 3-part extraterrestrial thing that they did all at once. So we had the remote viewing for 2 other parts, 2 other locations, 2 other situations not involving Mars. And I knew that they were going to, react possibly to it. And I said, if they're going to quit, let me get 3 in the can. Let me get 3 of these things done. And so I did it. And during some parts of the video, I don't think in the Cydonia one, but in the other 2, they start saying things like, this can't be. Courtney said he'd never give us extraterrestrial targets. What are we doing here? And it worked like a charm. And they didn't guess it till the end. And then when they finally saw it, you should see the emails coming back after all the remote viewing was in, all the videos was back to me, everything was locked and sealed. Then I revealed what the targets were. You should have seen the emails coming back. They were saying, are you saying that you test us with this? But they went on like they couldn't believe their eyes. So it worked like a charm. You see, remote viewing only works. It can't work any other way unless it's totally blind. So you have to have the best viewers, and they have to be totally in the dark. Because if you tell them remote view Cydonia, everything that they ever heard, I mean, you'd get like stories of, I see a face, I see it being carved in the rock, I see, this and that going on. And so the imagination and the memory would take over. So it has to be totally blind. And you don't have to worry about the accuracy, because as long as it's blind, these viewers are the best. It'll be as good a quality or better than if they were there and saw it with their own eyes. Now, why can I say it's better than what would happen if they saw it with their own eyes? How can you say that's impossible? How could it be? Because with remote viewing, these people can really see really clearly what's going on. But with remote viewing, you're not limited to, if you were there with your own pair of eyes, you've got one shot, you've got one perspective. But with remote viewing, they can move the camera around. They can go into it, they can go around it, they can go underneath it, into the tunnels down below, they can go back and forth in time. You get the idea? So it's not only the same clarity that you get with your physical eyes, but also you get that tremendous camera movement, not just spatial camera movement, but in time camera movement. So it's of a really unprecedented capability. By the way, I do want to say to your listeners that there's 2 types of listeners out there. That are on the sort of, weird side, but good side, weird and a good side. I consider myself weird. The first is that the military project officially ended in November of 1995. So some of your listeners may say, okay, so that was discredited, right? They said they wouldn't do it anymore. It was a mistake. Well, if those people think they really stopped it, what they did is they let it come out public because it was going to come out public anyway, and said they weren't going to do it anymore, and that sort of got it out of the public realm, just like with the Sphinx. I'm sorry, just like with Cydonia. See, it's not a face, so it gets it out of the public realm. But they started it up right away. The remote viewing project that they have going on now is way bigger than what it was before. And if that ever comes out public, they'll close that down and say, oh my gosh, I don't know how that happened. It must have been a rogue general. And they will start it up right over again. So, don't get misfooled by saying just because the military hasn't told you something, they must not be doing it. Secrecy is what they do best. There is nothing better than what they do with secrecy. That's it. So now the second thing is...
Well, let's take a break right there, because we got to get in our special surprise guest. Let's take a quick break. This is Fade to Black tonight. Dr. Courtney Brown, the Farsight Institute, and Cydonia, the Face on Mars. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be back after this short break. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Alternative Talk, KGRA.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. May arrives soon, and with it comes another Contact in the Desert. So join me in Joshua Tree, California for the 3rd annual Contact in the Desert Conference being held May 29th through the 31st. 2015 brings another awesome lineup of speakers, including publisher of Legendary Times, Giorgio Tsoukalos, New York Times bestselling author David Wilcock, journalist and conspiracy expert Jim Mars, former head of UFO Project for the MOD Nick Pope, investigative reporter Linda Moulton Howe, author and contactee Travis Walton, UFO historian Richard Dolan, and many more. You don't want to miss this. Fade to Black and KGRA will be there broadcasting live May 29th. Just visit contactinthedesert.com for tickets and information. That's contactinthedesert.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Did you ever turn to your radio for your favorite talk show to find that it's been preempted for this?
In the air to deep right center. Back goes Lewis to the wall, and it's out of here!
Or this?
And I'm ashamed of you, Hillary, for voting for it.
Do you have a favorite talk radio program that's not available in your city? Just go to TalkStreamLive.com for links to the best streaming talk radio shows. At TalkStream Live, you will find live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All your favorites are here. With such a large selection, you will also discover some new favorites. On the go and still want to listen? With a mobile smartphone, simply type TalkStream Live on your internet browser. Now you can take internet radio with you. You will also find hundreds of music, news, and sports streams. Best of all, the TalkStream Live directory is free and there's never a login required. Remember TalkStreamLive.com, the fastest route between you and your favorite talk radio show.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Everybody, welcome back. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Dr. Courtney Brown and the Farsight Institute, and we are now joined by our very special top secret guest, Dick Algire. Dick, how are you tonight?
I'm good. Oh, I'm the secret guest.
Yes.
Wow. Right.
Say hi to Courtney. Courtney's right next to you.
Hi, Courtney. Right. How are you?
It's great, Dick. It's great to be on the show with you.
Yeah, this is fun. I don't think we've done this together. All the projects we've done, I think this is the first time we've done a program together.
Yeah, this is great. Actually, no, we did it once before. I remember that was once before. It was a joint.
Oh yeah, that was about 3 years ago. We did one.
Yeah.
With Lynn Buchanan, there was a round table. There was a bunch.
Yeah.
Well, Dick, and welcome to the program. I have a couple of quick questions for you. Courtney was just saying on this recent viewing that you guys did with Cydonia that he promised you that like there would be no more ET stuff or anything like that. Everything would be on planet Earth. And you had, well, of course you absolutely had no clue, but in the end, when he disclosed the targets to you, how did you feel? Did you have a sense of where things were going? And then when he finally disclosed the targets, were you relieved, or how did you feel?
I felt It's more like, oh, okay, that's what it is. You have to understand that it's not just one target. There were 4 targets on this project that I worked over the course of October, November, December, January, 4.5 months. So it's not something that I'm just immersed in the one target, which was Cydonia. When I worked the initial target on, there were 2 taskings for Cydonia, and when I worked the first one, and you can see this when you watch the video, you can see me struggling with this, and Daz Smith too. Both of us are standing there getting the data going, this feels real weird. This doesn't feel like it's on Earth. This feels like some other planet.
Right.
So we had that gnawing at us, but you're never really sure. It's like, okay, this could be out in, I likened it to Mount Suribachi on Iwo Jima.
Right.
The initial stuff. Now, the going back in time to when there was a civilization on Mars, that was just high tech, very dynamic, and a lot going on. And I had no sense of it, what planet it was on. It was just what it was right in front of me at the moment.
Hey, Daz, this is just between me and you and our listeners. Can you tell when somebody's messing with you? Can you use this talent of yours for like anything? Maybe your kids or your, tell you they're somewhere else. Do they know that nobody can lie to you?
Yeah. I play a game. We call that tagging. What happens when you train with remote viewing, and I've been working with this at it for 17 years, you actually create new neural pathways in your brain, and essentially rewire your brain. So we all have this subconscious that has been trying to talk to us, and we all get glimpses of it. We all have intuitive moments, but we just don't listen to them. Like you've had a time when you haven't talked to a friend in 5 years, and you think of them, and 5 minutes later they call you.
Right.
Your subconscious was tapping you on the shoulder. So once you start purposely trying to do this and training to do it, it starts happening more and more spontaneously. So I play a game with my wife. She works managing a restaurant and comes home sometimes 8:30 at night, sometimes 10:30 at night. And I will just get up and open the door right when she's walking in. She was out with some friends, so I just did a little tagging. I looked to see where, closed my eyes and looked, and I drew the spot of town. And when she came home, I said, "I think you were here." And she was like, "Oh my goodness."
Oh, that's not cool, man. That's not. Do your friends know about this too as well?
Well, it's sometimes it's not something that you do constantly or that you can really do so much on demand, front loaded. You do have little moments and you show off once in a while, but not too much.
So pretty much everybody's honest with you. They, you know that if somebody's speaking to you, it's probably just going to be the truth because, oh, screw it. I can't be dishonest with Dick Algire.
Well, it's more spontaneous, like standing in line next to someone at the grocery.
Right, right.
You'll just get a sense of them, like, oh, they're sad. They just got bad news about their mother, or something.
Right.
But you have that too, and all your listeners do. If you stand in line, there are some people that you see in line at the bank, and you just don't want to stand next to them. That's your subconscious giving you a little clue. It's just learning to listen to that.
Now, when it came to Cydonia, let's talk about this a little bit directly. You you pointed out some things, especially towards the end. Well, actually, all of it was great, but when you start to, how do you? I guess I need to ask this more directly. When you go from you wanted to reach into religious aspects and you found yourself pulling back and saying, no, it's not religious, and there's a leader here, he's almost, and I think the words you used were medicine show, if you remember, and then
I think that was Daz Smith's session, I think. Isn't that right, Courtney?
No, it was definitely you. But
yeah, Dick, you actually did. You actually drew the picture.
Oh,
of
that guy.
Yeah, that guy. You drew his picture.
I'm sorry that I did that session in 2014, and I've moved on. I need to go watch the video again.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm so immersed in it at the time.
Now,
okay, so what was your question?
Well, but that's actually, Daz, actually, that's tremendously interesting, because that's exactly where I'm going with this, in that you are in the zone. You know, you're being pulled in different directions, and you're in the moment, and you were going, this is religious. No, it's not religious. It's a medicine. No, actually, this guy is very important, and you even drew his face. How is that going? Is it in real time where you literally change directions?
Yeah, it's interesting, and this is why it's interesting that Courtney is able to present these projects in the way he does, because we record it as we do it, and so you as the audience, as you watch it, can see those moments.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm standing there with the duplicity of awareness. I'm standing in a room with a light and a camera on and a whiteboard. And, of course, I'm aware that I'm there, but then part of me is also at the other place. And more of me, for moments, is sensing that other place and that other person. And so I'm just narrating it as I see it. And you can sense the uncertainty in the viewer's voice, like, what is this? Because it's kind of hazy to you. It's like, as a viewer, it's almost like watching a movie through a keyhole, starting a third of the way through it, and you don't know the plot.
Right.
You can only see part of the screen, and you're trying to explain it. Like, oh, there's a guy there, and he seems to be, and then something will bubble up into your subconscious, a word or a phrase that just seems out of place. And the best remote viewing data come at you unexpectedly. So as you're standing there, I'm thinking one thing, but then my subconscious tells me something else.
There was...
I might add something here, Jimmy, is
sure.
Like, we're having a three-way conversation with yourself, Dick Algire, and myself, Courtney. And you know how we're sharing information like this? And so when you're thinking about a project like we've done, where we've got three people, we've got Dick Algire, who we're talking with right now, Daz Smith, who's not here, but he's in Britain, and myself. And you sort of think that, well, if these three guys are doing it, they must be having a chat, just like we're having a chat now.
Right.
So the really interesting thing is that the kind of conversation we're having right this very second never takes place during the remote viewing projects, meaning Daz and Dick never talk when we're doing the remote. There's no communication between Daz and Dick. And so one of the things that's so interesting when you look at the stuff, and Dick, he should comment on this, is that the data that come in with quality viewers like Dick Algire and Daz Smith overlap so much. I mean, they both draw the exact same thing. And there's no communication between them. So even on that level, that it's sort of amazing that one person could draw exactly what's in the target photo. But imagine two people doing it simultaneously on the opposite end of the planet, and the conversation we're having here, we're three-way talking, it never happens. There's no communication between them. Dick might want to comment about the amazingness of this nature of overlap.
Well, and let me jump in. I want to ask Dick about that. When all was said and done, and you and Daz now have the opportunity to look at each other's work, there was one thing, well, there was many, but there was one thing that I thought that really stood out. Number one was your JPL, the guy with the laser pointer. And, Courtney, you and I will talk about that in depth later. But that he was pointing with the laser pointer not at Cydonia, but at the base of Cydonia. And you and Daz both focused on a civilization, a city, a town at the base of the mountain. And both of you were focusing on that aspect of it. And to have that as a coincidence, I dismiss. So, Dick, when you saw Daz's references to the exact same thing, what did you come away with?
Well, it's always, what's the word? Startling, shocking, revelatory. It's fun to see his work because, as Courtney said, I get an email from Courtney that says, we're going to do a project. Can you work target 12A? And so I do my thing, and I do a paper and pen session, and I have no idea what Daz is doing. I have no idea what the target is. I sit there in my own little space, and sometimes it's like trying to start a fire with a flint in damp kindling on a rainy day. Like, I don't think this is working. And then, so then I get I submit something to Courtney, and he goes, okay, can you do some more work on that? All right. So then I'm there at the whiteboard. So I do all this work, and like I said, sometimes I don't remember it. You're just putting stuff down as fast as you can as it comes to you, and you don't get a sense of really what the big picture is and what it means. Finally, when everything's done, after months of work, and I've submitted all the work to Courtney, and we've closed out the project, which means no more, you can't alter any data, it's all recorded, it's all in the book. Then I'm told what the target is. I go, oh, wow. And then I look at Daz's work, and then I go, oh, double wow. Oh, wow, he got, when we draw the same pictures, like you say, that's not coincidence.
Yeah, the city reference blew my mind, and also the NASA, the JPL comment, and that came out of nowhere because, and I have to ask you because you stopped dead in your tracks in the presentation, and I can't wait to get the feedback from our audience once they see this and they comment on this. That came at you like a flash, and you turn around and you drew what do I want to call it? The presentation that this speaker was doing at JPL. And you turn around and you said JPL. Now, out of everything, we know that you're doing Cydonia. We know that. You don't. That comes out of left field. You didn't say the NFL. You didn't say the NBA. You didn't say whatever, just pick a subject. It doesn't matter. You didn't say Penn Station in Manhattan. You said JPL, and
and it wasn't like this guy's giving a presentation on financial planning and this is a chart of annuity.
Exactly. That came at you at a flash. How does when it happens like that? What are you seeing? Is it a burst?
Yeah, it's a burst. I closed my eyes to look at this. I knew there was this landform. I was onto this landform because I'd seen it over and over again. I keep drawing it in the section. So I keep looking at that, and I slipped somehow, somewhere, and I closed my eyes and I looked, and I saw it was on a screen because it had square edges. And part of this is a visual of seeing square edges around out in nature, you wouldn't have a frame around a mountain. So there was a frame around it, and then there were people looking at it they would be too big. And it just it just bubbled up into my awareness that, these people are looking at a picture of that. Why would they do that? And I said, it would be like if JPL was looking for something. And for me, that's why I remote view that moment. After I got the feedback, I said, oh, face on Mars, the Cydonia. Okay, well, what did I get? And I went and I looked at my video, because I've got a couple hours of video, and I watched that unfold, and when I said that, I went, oh, isn't that cool? Wow, look what I did. Right. And it's almost like I'm the audience, too. It's like, oh, that's interesting.
I just want to recap really quick. We're talking with remote viewer Dick Algire. He's our special surprise guest tonight, and he's one of the viewers along with Daz Smith in the Farsight Institute newest presentation, the viewing of Cydonia and the face on Mars. And Dick, one of the things that that didn't get viewed, well, I guess not really, was the actual face itself. And neither you and Daz, although you had the mountain, the hill, and I love the Iwo Jima, by the way, references to that. But it was never really the face on Mars. Did you ever see it, or did you think about it after the fact that maybe you were seeing a face at some point, but you didn't illustrate it?
No, the closest I came to that was again in that moment. I said, "There's something. People see something here, but it's in the geology of the thing." And Courtney, you might want to jump in here. I mean, none of our data ever showed a face, so we don't believe there's actually a face there. Courtney, you want to talk about that?
Well, I mentioned it already. I never was a believer in the idea of a sphinx, something carved in rock. But clearly there's something artificial there because of the borders that are surrounding it. But yeah, I never was, my own thought of that is if someone was going to build a sphinx, you don't build it 3 kilometers from corner to corner. That's a huge thing. And why do it? There's, you always have more immediate concerns. I mean, a sphinx pointing upward, facing upward, why would you do such a big thing? On the other hand, it's clear that the entire place that we call the Cydonia face on Mars thing is elevated. It's got sloping sides all around it. It really looks like it was surrounded with water. And it looks like an island city. And, that's going to have topography that has sort of unusual. And it's not that unusual to think that it might have sort of some dents, some indentations in it that would look facially. It's very normal for humans to sort of personify things and to say that looks like a face. But, the face question is a proxy. What you're really asking when you're saying, do you see a face, is, were there people there? Did they build something? That's what the question is really about. And so it doesn't really matter if it's not a face. There's clear evidence that somebody built something there.
Yeah, there's a moment when Daz does a side view of the hill, and he draws the bumps on the top. And for a second, I thought he was going there with the face. It looks like, a nose and a chin and maybe some lips. He totally moves away from that moment of the side view and never goes back to it.
But I must say that side view was drop dead accurate.
It was drop dead accurate, but he let it go. That was. I thought that was strange because we know it's Cydonia, and I was like, wow, he's going there, but he never went back. I don't. He was more interested in and Daz, I wanted to ask you about this. It seemed to me that Daz was definitely focused not only on the city in front of, on the foothill, but underground structures, underground. And Dick, you eventually went there too as well. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, my underground stuff really felt like tunnels, and my sense of it is that it was transportation, like something moving real fast through it, like maglev trains or something. I didn't exactly say that.
You alluded to
Courtney?
it. What's that?
Yeah. He was talking about transportation. However, both Daz and Dick both described underground tunneling type of stuff, rooms underground, and extensive. And in the video, we also have pictures of the tunnels on Mars. There's lots of good NASA-supplied pictures of these tunnels where they've been exposed due to erosion over the millions of years. So we have these really good pictures of tunnels, and Dick's session is the first remote viewing session that I know of where the interior of these tunnels were actually described so well. And I must say that the level of detail which Dick brought into the tunnel infrastructure really does make sense given the nature of the society that must have been there. So it matches the pictures that we have of Mars.
The technology that Dick, that you allude to, I found it fascinating. The sensors on the roof of the tunnel, the blue fabric on the sides indicating light, and how you tied all of that together was fascinating with the power source off to the side. Again, what were you said maglev trained, but the technology that you were trying to illustrate, now that you know it's Cydonia, what did you think about that technology? Because it's not anything that we know about here, but you were trying to illustrate it, I guess is what I'm trying to get to.
It may be beyond my scientific understanding. I was thinking about that as I watched that segment of the video, and my sense, and this doesn't come from actual direct remote viewing, not data that I got in session, but you kind of try to sort it out after, was that maybe high-speed transportation through the air using a tube that you throw exhaust out of an engine, like a jetliner, isn't the most efficient way. That I think maybe they had a way to move around quickly through some kind of high-tech tunnels. It may have been, I just got a sense of some type of transportation. And yeah, I saw those sensors and there was lights going down it and really high speed, and it was connected to a power source off to it. I draw all this on the video.
Yeah, and
it's interesting.
Because you were trying to get your head, you were trying to illustrate this technology is what I'm getting at. You were doing your best. And I don't know what you were seeing in your mind's eye at that time, but you've only got a whiteboard and a marker. And I guess the question is more direct. Was it just far too advanced for you to get pen to paper?
It was a little bit beyond me. It would be more like someone from the 15th century who lives in the forest, in a hut, seeing the Tokyo subway system.
Right.
Was my sense of it. It would be. That's the closest way I could describe it, would be the Tokyo subway system.
And do you think you left? Do you think you left anything on the table?
What do you mean?
That you didn't get to illustrate? Was it too far above you? Do you think that you? A better way to ask the question would be, after all of this is done, do you think you could go back and maybe better illustrate what this technology was?
No. One thing we try to do with these projects is to milk it for everything you have. When you're in that state, when you're in that session, you get like one shot at it. The camera's rolling, and it really is almost against protocol to go back and redo it. And certainly if you've gotten any feedback or any comment on your session, you're done. You only get one chance at it. So right. I try to run with it as far as I can. Now, you get to the limit of your own mental endurance. It's really hard to stand up there and do that And I'm exhausted at the end of a session like that. I'm wiped out for a couple days. I'm a babbling.
My comment is you need to run straight to the patent office is what you need to do.
Well,
because
if I could figure out how they how they do that, it would have been interesting to, for example, have you be my monitor and watching me this, and then guide me and say, what's the power source? What is it they're moving through this? How many people are on it, or what's it constructed of? You're just clutching at things as you're doing the remote viewing session. There's no monitor. It's me all alone.
There's one thing I want to ask you before we let you go. Was the crevice. Now, we've all seen the photographs and the imagery of Cydonia, and I haven't seen this crevice that you did and you spent a lot of time on the crevice and the significance of it, the fossilization and the debris that is buried, the sediment and the strata that is in this crevice. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because our listeners are going to go and watch this video. Can you help them along? Where was the crevice in the mountain?
I'm not sure. See, when you're in a remote viewing session and you're blind, I'm trying to get everything that's possibly there. I don't know what's of interest to Courtney. I knew when I was doing this session that there was land, and that's what was mostly there in modern day Cydonia as it was tasked in that current picture, the picture taken in the 80s or 90s or whenever. So I'm there and I'm saying, okay, what about this land? What about this land? It could be, there's this huge gouge on Mars. I might have shifted over to that, just looking for anything of interest. But my sense of it, I don't know exactly where it was. Like I couldn't pinpoint it on a map of Mars. But what I do know is that there is something interesting. The Mars rover and Curiosity that's crawling around up there right now, that thing is literally just scratching the surface. They dig down, an inch or two. What I was perceiving was that there is, in the strata of the rock, way down, is evidence of fossils, bones, artifacts, a civilization that was, it could have been 100,000, 200,000, 1 million years ago, that is now part of the rock down below, and that evidence is there. So that's my sense.
Let me add something to this. I'm looking at a image at the Cydonia target image right now. Jimmy, the problem is that these images that you're looking at, you don't see the crevice because you're looking at it directly from above and you're looking directly down. But there's actually a crevice right through the center of the face, meaning there's actually a huge gouge right in the middle of the face. And when I saw Dick actually describe that crevice, my thought was, wow, look at that. He picked that up right there.
Right.
So it's actually there, but you can't see it so clearly from the side. But it's a darker area, and it's going right through, and it surrounds what some people think of as a nose. And it's right off to the side.
That's what I thought he was referring to, because if you remember...
What I think so, too.
Yeah, if you go back and you look in the video, he actually draws, Dick, you may remember, when you draw the crevice, you do an arch over the top of the crevice. Indicating that there's something above it, And so that's, I went back and looked, and I thought the same thing, Courtney. And so I was just wondering if he could pinpoint if there was anything in his mind that would indicate, was it in the center? Was it off to the side? Was it underneath? Maybe it was buried, but I thought it was the nose. I thought it was right dead center after he drew the dome arches on the top of. You have to see the video. It's coming at you so fast.
Actually, what you can say is that the crevice is one of the elements that are verifiable. It's one of the verifiable elements in the target, meaning you've got a barren landscape, you've got a hill, you've got linear parameters around the side of it, and in some areas, in some of the corners, you have this terraced look that's undoubtedly not terraced, but something, like steps is underneath it. And then you have this crevice that goes right through literally diagonally right through the face. And so Dick got all of that. You're actually expecting someone to talk about the crevice. And so when he talks about the crevice, I said, oh, wow, he hit it. Great, spot on. That was my reaction to it.
Yeah, Jimmy, it's also important. This is why it's important to have a team. When you do a project, you can't just have one viewer doing this alone, because I'm the viewer. Essentially what I am is a rat in a maze, or a mouse, looking for a piece of cheese. Mm-hmm. So I'm going down this corridor, and I turn right, and then I turn left, and I go this way, right again, and over here it's a piece of cheese. So I go get the piece of cheese. Well, I don't know. It's like Courtney's doing the overview of making sense of it all.
There's
as a
one
viewer, you're really kind of stupid sometimes.
I'll say this: there's one thing. There's many, but there's one thing that you do point out that is not in the photographs of any of the imaging on Mars. And if this comes out later, you guys will be the most famous people in the history of man, which is the. You call it repeating structures. And you emphasize that from the very beginning of the session all the way to the end. And those repeating structures are not, and I went back and I looked, the images aren't clear enough to show anything there. But you are clearly indicating something that nobody else has ever referenced before. And I think you were seeing maybe statues. I know you pointed out Moai from Easter Island. You mentioned that.
Yeah.
But if it comes out, if those images of Cydonia show anything like that in the future, quite possibly you're going to be the most famous man in the history of everything.
Well, it was a strong visual that I had, and I actually look at that sketch that I did and thought, man, I don't see that in the picture, but I did see that when I looked at that in the session, because it was all so barren, jagged, and natural, and that those repeating things stood out for me. So we'll see. Sometimes you do get feedback years later, and we'll keep that one. It's on the record.
Yeah, exactly. It's on the record. And you definitely drove that point home. I mean, you did it. You went back to it probably 4, 5, 6 times in the presentation.
Well, it's interesting because Courtney and I we were just talking on the phone a couple of nights ago, and I was saying, Courtney, this video is really kind of long. And Courtney said, Dick, this is our one chance to get this all on the record. This is the historical record. We've got to publish it all.
It's actually way too short.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you, Jimmy. There you go, Courtney. You're right.
Thank you, Dick, for coming on tonight and taking the time out of your very busy day. You're out there in Hawaii. Go do something fun. And this is fun. But thank you for watching the video and such insightful comments. I mean, it really it's gratifying to us to have someone watch this work and really appreciate it. It makes it worthwhile for us. So thank you very much. I want to steal you away for a future show. You and I were talking about that earlier, so I want to get you on.
Sure.
Sans Courtney, just you and I, one-on-one.
Well, there are 2 other videos coming out of this project. There are 2 other targets, which Courtney has. That's the real secret.
Oh, man. Courtney, you going to let him do that? You're going to let him do that on the show?
Yeah, well, there's that. It's okay. In the end of this Cydonia one, we do name the topic of the next one. But, Jimmy, it's good you mentioned having Dick on your show just by himself, because Dick is essentially a national resource. I don't know anybody in the United States that can do remote viewing at the level that he does. I should also say that Daz Smith would be happy to come on, and he's a British national resource in the sense that Dick, in my opinion, you won't hear them say this, but I'm free to say this. Dick and Daz are the people who are literally at the very top of the game in terms of doing this. They are the people that are, better than anybody. They have taken it more seriously. They've studied it more seriously. They've taken constructive criticism. They've done what they needed to do. It's to them, it's a joy, it's a love, it's something they do because it's a passion. And your listeners, just like I'm fascinated just to hear you interview Dick just now, even though it was only a half hour, 35 minutes.
Right.
I would listen to the whole thing. If you had him on for 2-3 hours, I'd listen to the whole thing. And the same with Daz. And that doesn't happen. They don't get much public visibility. They don't get hardly any interviews. And if you did it, believe me, it would be like for the historical record as well. And they both do very well in front of the mic. Dick was a celebrity newscaster, so for over 30 years, so he's great in front of the mic. But Daz also does very well.
Dick, I got to get you on, so let's do it.
Yeah, we'll do it. Anyway, thanks for having me on this time. I'll let you continue your conversation with Courtney, and we'll talk to you both later. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you.
I think people will enjoy this. Courtney has put the link up at farsight.org, and you can watch it as a video on Vimeo.
Yeah, we've already tweeted. The link is out there, and it's also a treat. Courtney's exactly right. When you're watching this video, they're going to go back and think about listening to you tonight on the show, and they can make that direct connection. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Have a good night, both of you. All right. Take care. Aloha.
Aloha. Dick Algire. Wow, that was a treat. Thank you so much for doing that, Courtney.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah,
that was great.
I can't wait.
I enjoyed that too.
See, I'm going to get him on the show, and I want to know. I want to know. It would have taken up too much time tonight. I want to talk about Cydonia, but I want to know what he's seeing. I want to know what's going on behind his eyeballs when that's going down.
That's absolutely key. That would be so fascinating for all of your listeners, for you to question him repeatedly for a few hours about what did it actually look like? What was the image? Was it fuzzy? Was it foggy? How was it? Because the descriptions that we record on video are so clear. It's like you've got a high-resolution camera lens, like you're dealing with the best of the best. How can it be so clear? I think your listeners would be fascinated to know what this level of training can do. How in the world can they do it, and what in the world does it look like when they're actually doing it? So, yeah, it would be a great interview. I would love to hear it myself.
Yeah, these are some of the notes that I took. Excuse me, that I took today during the presentation. And with Daz, let's start with Daz. I want your comments on this. Daz definitely focused on rooms and an underground structure, a controlled environment, layers. And there was one other thing that, the both of them commented on, but Daz kept going back to saying man-made, dusty, weathered, old, for purpose, but it's abandoned now. He kept, emphasizing this over and over again. When Dick came on, he nearly chose the same words.
Isn't it funny? It's amazing. I am always amazed at the exact same thing.
And he, the dampness and the controlled environment, he kept like it was maybe a safe. What are the boxes that you have in a bank? What are those called?
Safe deposit boxes.
Safe deposit boxes. That it kind of felt like he was describing that kind of atmosphere, like an underground vault. Is that how
they both described it as very stuffy under there, and underneath. And when Dick was talking about the tunnels, and Daz was talking about the passageways and the chambers down below, they both were saying the air was really bad. It was really stuffy, and it was fascinating to watch them. I just can't I can't get over how interesting it is for even me, and I've been doing this for an awful long time, to see two viewers on the opposite end of the planet with no communication between them come in with the exact same stuff. It's just so great. And, you know, I have to say, you're going to see the same thing over when we do the next project. And the next project is, I'll tell you now, it's about Iapetus. There was a facility that was photographed really nicely by the Cassini spacecraft, and I always looked at that, and it was on the inside of a crater, and I said, what the heck is that? It's a really nice thing. And I said, I'm going to, you know, that's not something that's out there on the front pages like the face on Mars. That's something that we observed down there, and there's been a little bit of internet chatter about it, but not much. And I said, I'm going to target that. That's sufficiently unnatural that I'm going to do it. So we got the whole backstory of that. We got a really nice photograph from Cassini spacecraft of care of NASA and his partners, and then we have the whole backstory. And so, you know, when we come out with that, and that'll be in about 2 months, I'll give you this much for it, and then we'll get right back to Cydonia. You know Warren Buffett.
Yep.
You know Bill Gates, two of the richest guys on the planet Earth. Well, if you're talking a whole solar system, you're realizing at that point with much higher technology levels, you're talking there are people that are way wealthier than those guys. I mean, you know, back in the past, there were people that were like way, way wealthier than those guys. Well, there was a guy who was so wealthy. Jimmy, just let me put it this way. If money wasn't the issue, mind you, we're not talking chemical rockets. We're talking, you know, the same type of technology that UFOs use so getting there and back is not an issue. So just put that aside. If you had your choice to put a health spa, resort, whatever, anywhere in the solar system, where would you put it? I can't imagine a more beautiful, spiritual, whatever place than on Iapetus. And right above you is the rings of Saturn. And the Saturn is there right above you. And the stars, you can see in no atmosphere, you can see every star in the universe. That's what the bugger did. He built, and we're not talking about an outpost that's a military facility or a spy place. He built a resort, and we got the whole backstory, the whole thing about it, and that is to die for. Oh, by the way, I should mention this, Jimmy. I really have to mention this, if you don't mind. We are a nonprofit, so we don't advertise. We don't we've never bought any advertising ever. So there's no way for us to tell people when these new things come out. And we have something new coming out almost every week, but the big projects especially. So if your listeners would do themselves a favor, if they could go to our website at farsight.org, F-A-R-S-I-G-H-T, like seeing far.org, O-R-G, and at the top of the nav bar, there's a link that says sign up for our free newsletter. If they just click on that, put their email address in, and it's done. We never give out the email addresses for any reason whatsoever, period, full stop, end of story. And it's free. And we only send out a newsletter about once a week so that people know what's recent. And when our new projects come out, that's where you hear about it. If you don't get the newsletter, we don't come knocking on your door to tell you. We have no advertisement. So, there's no reason not to. So if you don't mind me sort of mentioning that free newsletter, it really is our only way to get to let people know what we're doing.
I'll help you do it again. www.farsight.org. And we'll pop the link in Twitter, and we'll send it out to a few thousand people right now during the show in real time. And all of the links, Courtney, are at jimmychurchradio.com. Just click on Courtney's name. It'll take you there. Also, throughout Courtney's bio, all of the other links are there, too, as well. But
since we're doing this, also, let me just mention that we've been talking about the video on demand through Vimeo, but the DVD came out today. So it's for those people who want that format, the DVD is also there.
There's still something about being tactile.
Some people
just
like
downloads.
It.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a question here that came in from Allison, and it's a great one. She says, when you are viewing a person, can that person be aware that they are being viewed?
That's a really great question. Yes and no. For humans, the answer is no. When the remote viewers were remote viewing the guys on Mars, and I mean guys generically, men and women, there was nobody that saw them. there was nobody that turned around and looked in their direction and pointed at them and something like that. So they were just like us. In fact, they looked like us. They acted like us. And in fact, this thing that happened in Mars, we'll talk later about what happened in Mars, their demise, what happened. This was a long time ago. And remote viewing clearly indicates that we are more than our physical bodies. Otherwise, you couldn't remote view. So the real question is, what happens when your physical body goes? What happens when you die? Well, they had to go somewhere. And with Mars coming to a sudden end, and that's what happened. It wasn't whimper away over many thousands of years and millions of years. It was a sudden thing. They had to go somewhere, and the most likely place was the nearby, here we are. And so I like to think of the Martians as us when we were there. So they acted just like us. You wouldn't notice any difference between them and us when they acted like us. I mean, they were probably using a different language. I'm sure they didn't speak English.
Right.
But but anyway, however, the reason it's such an interesting question is when we do remote view extraterrestrials, that's not the case. And the Giza project, one of the most fascinating...
What do you mean? What do you mean that's not the case?
They see us. They turn right in our direction. They all turn around and look at us, and they point at us. And they, more often than not, start up a conversation. And the remote viewers say exactly, but that never happens with humans. It just simply doesn't happen with humans. So the answer to the question it was a great question, is among humans, no. And if you are thinking that you are being spied on with remote viewers, you need to see a psychiatrist. It's not an issue of remote viewers actually watching you. It doesn't happen. These are things that are so hard to do. There's no way in the world that a remote viewer would ever do that to anybody, first of all. And second, I mean, it takes enormous amount of effort and prep time to get a target going and so on. No one's going to spy on anybody. It's just ridiculous. So, but even if they did, you would never know it. But it's not happening. Trust me, when we do this thing, it takes us months to gear up and to get the data. We're not interested in what Susie's doing across the street. It just never happens. But on the other hand, the extraterrestrials, when we remote view them, and I'm not talking about the Martian extraterrestrials, I'm talking about other ones that you get in ships, they see you. I mean, it's not even hard for them. They see you and they turn around. And I want to say something. We have a video that's out now that's on the Great Pyramid of Giza. Now, that was not intended to be an extraterrestrial target, Jimmy. Honest. That was at the time when I was promising them, the viewers, I'll never give you an extraterrestrial target. And I was lying, but, I was still promising them. And I wanted to convince them, to keep on going. I don't want them to quit on me. If I lose these 2 viewers, I'm out of business.
Right.
So, but I can't help it if when they go into a session, they see them, they get extraterrestrials. I mean, it's not my fault.
Right.
I didn't know the extraterrestrials were involved in constructing back then a slave society to create a religion and a pile of rocks called the pyramid to help mind control for the whole planet. I mean, it was a really weird thing, but we got the whole backstory of the Great Pyramid of Giza. It was totally different from what anyone else could think about. It was closer to the Stargate movie than you can imagine. But the point is, we got this thing, and there was a malevolent extraterrestrial that Dick Algire called the Grey Dude. I mean, what did he call her? I think he called her the Grasshopper Lady or something like that. Yeah, it was a lady that was like the Praying Mantis Lady.
The Praying Mantis, yes.
And she was like a large insect, but, that's not unusual because if you leave life alone long enough, some species is going to develop intelligence. Now, we just say it has to be humanoid, it's us, because we know ourselves. But if you don't have us, it's going to be some other species. Some species is going to develop an ecological Darwinian niche of an advantage of intelligence. And in this case, there was a large praying mantis type thing. Anyway, she was nurturing a crop, let's call them a crop, of hybrid humanoid types that were essentially being grown as slaves that would be resistant to some of the very toxic mining chemicals that were used for getting some of the rocks out they were using high energy laser type things to carve the stones out. That's how they got those incredibly sharp flat edges.
Right.
And, normal humans like you and me would have died like in a second just breathing that stuff. And so they were genetically engineering this crop of beings that were disposable. And when they malfunctioned, they just, dropped off and they were replaced.
Right.
But they didn't have like a high intellectual capability or not. Anyway, this praying mantis lady was like nurturing and sort of felt sort of like their mother in the sense of nurturing. Like you would think of like you have some pets at home and you sort of treat them. Anyway, so she was there, and Dick Algire got in there and started looking at all these big tubes containing these fetuses, and then saw her, and she just looked right at him and said, "What the blankety blank are you doing here?" She was quite impressed that a human could find her, and she said, "But this is not amusing. This is not. You're not supposed to be here. Get the blankety blank out of here." And Dick was reporting all this back. Now I have to, and that's available now. You can actually. So that was if you think about it. That was one of the first live recorded interactions, talk between a human and an extraterrestrial done with remote viewing. I mean, it was not something that he reported back later. It was recorded live right then and there, and you can see it with the Giza video. You can actually see it. So it's not like you're hearing someone tell about how it happened. You're actually watching it happen, and so it's really fascinating. I have to say one more thing.
Yes, and we're up against a break in about 2 minutes.
Okay. For the last project, not the Iapetus project. For the Iapetus project, whoever was there, they were like the Martians. They didn't see us. But for the last project, and let me keep it as a little bit of a surprise, but we had the same type of situation. They were not. They're extraterrestrials, absolutely clearly extraterrestrials, and they saw the viewers coming. And they weren't even a blink, and there were conversations. I mean, they actually, so they not only saw them coming, they said stuff, and people like Dick took notes and recorded everything, and so it was like wide open. So that's sort of a long answer to that question, but it was a fascinating question, and believe me, we've got more to say on that subject as these videos roll out.
I feel like you're remote viewing my notes here from my producers because that's exactly what the question was. Any remote viewings, new remote viewings of live ETs in the present time, either here on Earth or off planet. And we're up against a break, but can you address that really quickly?
Say that again one more time.
Do you have any recent remote viewings of live ETs in the present
absolutely.
time?
Well, time doesn't exist. Actually, I'm a mathematician. For those people who do like advanced math and physics, time eventually always divides out. They never have figured out time. Time doesn't seem to. So with remote viewing, you clearly go back and forward in time as if it's completely transparent with respect to that. But the interaction that happens with the third element of the project, and that video will probably be coming out in July, that you would consider present-day live. I want to leave a little suspense here, but that is a huge project, and that would be considered present-day live, and it's definitely in your recent memory, and it's a target that hundreds of thousands of people witnessed, and the remote viewers and the ETs were face to face.
This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. KGRA, the planet, the Game Changer Network. Tonight, Dr. Courtney Brown, the Farsight Institute. When I come back, I'm going to ask Courtney, what's the difference between remote viewing and channeling of others? I'll be back right after this. Stay with us, Courtney.
KGRA Radio. Intelligent talk.
Are you a paranormal investigator, ghost hunter, or UFO skywatcher? If so, FNGinnovations.com has the product you definitely need in your investigations kit or go bag. Introducing the Morpholite Wide Beam Tactical Flashlights that put the light where you need it most. Traditional flashlights shine a focused round beam with limited line of sight in the dark. Morpholite Tactical Flashlights change all that, utilizing a revolutionary wide beam design to enable you to see safety hazards such as hanging wires and steel, pipes, and holes in the floor you just can't see with a focused round beam. In the field, where safety is paramount, a 180-degree beam increases orientation and peripheral vision in the dark. Morpholite flashlights are ideal for investigations in abandoned facilities such as houses and hospitals, factories, caves, and tunnels. Avoid those low-hanging tree branches that poke your eyes in the woods. Visit fnginnovations.com to see a full line of tactical lights and accessories. That's fnginnovations.com.
Now you can find all your favorite talk radio shows live, all in one place at TalkStreamLive.com. Listen from anywhere, office, home, or in your car. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com and click on one of the many live talk show hosts you want to listen to. It's free and easy. No computer? Download the smartphone apps. Never miss your favorite talk show. Find them all at TalkStreamLive.com.
Hi, Ray Hobbs here with KGRA. Spring is just around the corner here in Northwest Arkansas, and that means it's almost time for the 28th Annual Ozark Mountain UFO Conference, continuing a time-honored tradition of bringing thought-provoking information about other worlds around us. Join me and the KGRA crew April 10th through the 12th in beautiful Eureka Springs, Arkansas, for another great lineup of speakers, including investigative journalist Linda Moulton Howe, the National UFO Reporting Center's Peter Davenport, returning to Ozark as this year's keynote speaker, author and American historian Richard Dolan, and many more. The KGRA will be there broadcasting live all weekend. Register and reserve your seating early and pick up a free membership from the KGRA and Ozark Mountain Publishing. Visit www.ozarkufoconference.com for tickets and information. That's ozarkufoconference.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. Follow us on Twitter right now at JChurchRadio. Come jump in the sandbox. Tonight, Dr. Courtney Brown from the Farsight Institute and his recent remote viewings of Cydonia. That's the subject tonight. I have a question here. This is from Renee. She says, so many humans now claim to be channeling others, and they get physical descriptions either telepathically communicated or sensed by the channelers. If that's really happening with even some of them, you'd think that remote viewers should be able to join up with the channelers and work together, wouldn't you? What do you think about that, Courtney?
Well, that's a really interesting question. You know, channeling is not something I do or... but we don't do it at the Farsight Institute. I was trained as a remote viewer, but I've done remote viewing a lot, but I'm usually the chief investigator. I don't normally do the remote viewing for the projects at the Farsight Institute because it has to be done blind. So someone has to come up with the projects and the targets. So that's me. And so people like Dick Algire and Daz Smith are the ones who do the actual remote viewing. Now, so I know a lot about that. Channeling is a different thing. Channeling is something where someone is allowing another entity to use their vocal cords to explain things. I do know enough about it to say the following. There's a lot of really good stuff that can be gotten out there, and there's a lot more really bad junk out there, meaning there's a mix. And it's very similar to remote viewing. It's like, I do photography as well. I'm an artist, a digital artist, but also I dabble in photography. Mostly I'm a filmmaker, but I do digital art and photography. And digital art I do a lot of, and photography I like doing glamour photography and things like that. I'm sort of well known as a pretty good photographer. I was talking to a model the other day, and I was saying, what about this, and what about that photographer, and how do you rate that photographer, and so on. And she looked at me and she said, Courtney, there's a difference between people who take pictures and a photographer.
Yes.
And that person we were talking about was someone she considered takes pictures, meaning the guy bought a camera, but that doesn't make him a photographer. Well, channeling and remote viewing is the same. There's a lot of people that call themselves remote viewers, but that doesn't mean they're remote viewers. There's a lot of people call themselves channelers, but that doesn't mean they're channelers, meaning they have to be able to get high-quality data unambiguously matched to, both sounding reasonable but unambiguously matched to verifiable elements, and to be correct a lot of the time. Like in the situation of Daz and Dick, we don't have like really bad sessions from them. I mean, they're like, when we do projects with them, it always turns out okay. So that level of accuracy, you can really say that's using a structured level of procedures that we can match with verifiable elements and evaluate the quality of the data. So that's there. Now, with a lot of people who use the word remote viewing, they maybe come in with data that's very fuzzy, very ambiguous, a wavy line here or something like that. You don't really know what there is that they're looking. It's not so clear. So you say, are they remote viewers or are they studying remote viewing? That's the real question you have to ask. So same with photography. Are they photographers or are they studying photography? Same with channelers. Are they channelers or are they doing something on their own? So with channelers, I have found there's a few really extraordinary ones. I would consider like, and I'm not going to get into an argument with people about their favorite channeler, but there are some channels that I find to be extraordinary in the sense that they take their art seriously as a science. They evaluate it with respect to verifiable elements. They see how it goes. They're very serious about it, and they're very systematic about it, and they've studied under serious people. And in my own view, two channelers that are among the very, very best on the planet, who are very rigorous, are Daryl Anka, who channels Bashar.
The best.
Yeah, and Lisa Royale. Actually,
Yep.
She sometimes goes by Lisa Royale Holt, but her maiden name is Lisa, Lyssa Royale. And that's R-O, like royal, like the Royal Navy type of thing. And she and Daryl both studied under the same teacher at the same time. So they're not only friends, but they both have that same educational pedigree. And one of the things that was really drilled into them at the time is the need to disconnect yourself, your own ego, your own thoughts, your own imaginations from this, and really to let it go, and then to be able to evaluate where you are. And they really do take this stuff extremely seriously. And their data that they come in with is really not only extremely settled, but extraordinary. I'll give you an example with Daryl Smith, for example, and his channeling of Bashar. My first book on remote viewing was a personal exploration with myself as a remote viewer into using remote viewing to explore extraterrestrial life, and it was called Cosmic Voyage, and it was published by Penguin. It's still available as a free PDF download. You can get it from my website, CourtneyBrown.com. That's my personal website, just my name.com. And it's in the speculative nonfiction area, and you can just download it and read it, or you can get it from scribe.com or whatever. But anyway, it's available, plus the sequel to it, which is Cosmic Explorers. But when Cosmic Voyage came out, it came out in late to mid-March of, I think it was 1996.
That feels right. Yeah, that feels right.
And Daryl Smith, channeling Bashar, I believe it was in Las Vegas, announced the book by name in early January. Now,
is that right?
Yeah. And it was recorded on a tape. I heard the recording myself. And back in those days when we were teaching like live courses in groups, some of the people in the very first course were people who followed Daryl Smith and Bashar that showed up, and they said, we came because Bashar told us you were doing this, and we got your book. And he identified it by name. Now, there was a publisher's injunction on the book. First of all, the book wasn't available when he announced it by name. No one could get it. Secondly, there were only a few paperback, what did they call them? They're like copies were there to check for typos. there were a few of those that were in print just for like, they're not proofs, but they're similar to proofs. And you check for there's mistakes in them and checks. That was the only thing that was sort of vaguely available, and no one was allowed to have those. They were kept under lock and key. I was only shown one of those to double check for typos and stuff like that. So there's no way in the world that Daryl Smith could have gotten a copy of them. I mean, there's no place he could have gotten a copy of them. And so he came out, he told the story of what the book was about. He said it was about remote viewing. He said the name of the book and said who was doing it. and I said, what the? I mean, that's the type of stuff you get with, and Lisa Royale is very similar. Lisa Royale channels, Daryl Smith channels Bashar, who is essentially a future version of himself. So he's channeling himself. And Lisa Royale channels a personality, an extraterrestrial personality called Sasha, and another collective extraterrestrial personality, collective personality called Germain. And that, they're really the best of the best. Now there are listeners here who say, but I like, okay, that's fine. You enjoy them. That's great. I'm just telling you, in my experience, there are probably lots of channelers out there that are good that I don't know about. I don't really follow it. But the quality that I do know comes out of people like Bashar and Lisa Royale are sort of the standard that I hold up for what has to be. And the best of all channelers, the sort of the grandmother of everybody, was Jane Roberts, no longer living, and she channeled Seth, the entity Seth, and she wrote, and she and her husband her husband took the notes, and they ended up writing transcripts, which were 11 books, and the original manuscripts and all communications for those books are now held in the Yale Manuscripts and Archives division. That's a very special division, atmosphere controlled, I understand, and the whole thing. So it's a really big deal, those channeled works, the Seth books. And I read all 11 of those books, sometimes multiple times. It's extraordinary stuff.
Bashar, I went through a really, really bad Daryl Anka addiction. I mean, I had it bad, and I was driving my wife crazy. I was listening to him every single night, but what got me on to him? He's been a guest on the show. I love Daryl, but his description of time travel, and I listened to that one night, and it was different than anything else I'd ever heard before, and that's kind of what got me onto it. But I went and listened to him for a good 6 months. I gathered everything that I could, all the videos, all the radio, anything that I could find, all of the audio. And when I finally got in touch with him and I had him come on the show, it was, I want to say he's not only honest, but he is an intellectual, and he's frighteningly smart. And a very nice guy, too, as well. I highly recommend anybody that wants, and you're absolutely right, not to endorse anybody, but if you're going to go and listen and want to investigate remote viewing, definitely, or remote viewing, channeling, Daryl Anka and Bashar is certainly where you should start. Lisa Royale, too, is very good. But Daryl Anka, spot on the money. Spot on.
I've gotten a lot from listening to both of them. They're both very reasonable in saying things. For example, with Lisa Royale Halt, the description which I use to this day to help explain how remote viewing could be possible, what the brain is doing, is she, actually it wasn't her, it was I believe it was either Sasha or Germain, I forget which one, said that your brains are actually very sophisticated hologram generators. Now, at that point, I had been studying quantum mechanics for quite a while under my tutor, John Russell, who was, he used to work at Georgia Tech. He was a nuclear physicist. He was the guy who invented the first palladium seeds, those little rice-shaped pellets that are used for treating cancers, like prostate cancers and breast cancers and so on. And he's brilliant. He was big in the field. He's dead now. Well, he's alive, but he's no longer physical. And we used to sit out on my boat in Lake Lanier, and I had my own personal best physicist on the planet tutor for years on quantum mechanics. I mean, nobody ever gets treatment like that. It was great. And when I was all putting it together about how the frequencies work and how remote viewing works with frequency base, I was really searching for words to describe how it. And when I heard either Sasha or Jermaine being channeled through Lisa Royal Holt describe it as the brain is working like a receiver, television or radio receiver, that's screening out all frequencies that it doesn't want you to see, so that you see only one picture of reality that's in front of you. And the brain is like is a very sophisticated hologram generator in that sense. It's creating a reality by tuning in to only one set of frequencies. That made so much sense to me, and I use that description to this day. So sometimes I think I get the feeling that sometimes, and maybe being egotistical about this, it's probably not true, but I sometimes get the feeling that they say some things in channeling, sort of knowing they have a wider angle view of where the information is going to go, that maybe I need it. I may need some words I'm struggling with, and I hear it when they say it, and I'm saying, how did you know I was searching for the exact words that are needed to describe what I'm doing? And I get it from them. And I've got that a few times from Lisa Royal Holt, and also I've gotten it quite a few times from Bashar, where he says things, he verbalizes things that I couldn't have thought of the words quite exactly right, and he just sort of puts it the way it needs to be put. And I am unapologetically grateful that they have done their work, they have done this channeling, and that they have used those words, and I find some of them to be extraordinary, and I have borrowed them.
So have I. This came into Twitter about 21 minutes ago, and I've been trying to get back to this. This is from Jeffrey. He says, if ETs can pick up on our viewing, can they also control what they want the remote viewer to see?
That's a great question.
Yes, it is.
And a lot of people actually say, who have heard of on the paranoid side of things, well, then we don't really know if remote viewing is accurate, because you could have been fed anything you want by ETs that control what you see. And I really have no good answer to that, other than the fact that we do an awful lot of remote viewing for an awful lot of targets, and we get essentially the same picture being developed, meaning if someone was controlling what we were doing, they'd have to control us every minute of the day, all of us, all at once. And that would all be an awfully big job to do that. So it's really more of a question about one remote viewing session more than are you controlling absolutely everything. It's like sort of saying, can you control the internet? I remember when the internet was being introduced to China, and Bill Clinton said, good luck. If they want to try to control the information that's available to the internet so they can control Chinese society, if the government there wanted to do that, he said, let them try. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. It's going to slip through the fingers. And so I'm not really worried about whether all the information we get is manipulated or controlled. I really don't think it is. The other thing is that if there is somebody that's trying to control what we see, we have very, very unambiguous evidence that there are others that make it possible, that stop that from happening. That if there and mostly what we have found is that there are attempts from time to time to block us. So it's not so much creating a reality that we see, so we see a false picture of reality, but we have had situations where attempts have been made to block us so that we can't get at certain targets. It happens very rarely, but it has happened. And we do have anti-blocking procedures, meaning procedures that are used to get around that. And my understanding is there is no known technology on Earth that is capable of getting around the anti-blocking procedure. So if someone tries to block us, we can sort of figure out that that's happening, and we can get around that. Now, let me give you an example, however, that's sort of not exactly aimed at what the questioner Jeffrey was asking about, but it's very close in an unexpected direction. I was doing a remote viewing in my early days when I was writing Cosmic Voyage. The book I mentioned is now available for free download. It was a bestseller in its day. And I was remote viewing, and it was under blind conditions. It was a Zeta ship, a ship flown by the so-called Greys. And I went in, and it was one of those situations where I was in the middle of the ship, and they all turned around and looked at me. So it was one of those situations that they could see me coming. And although they don't express emotion the way we express emotion, in their own way, they were delighted that I popped in. And they wanted me to see everything. And it's the only time I actually really had an experience like that. They essentially grabbed me by the scruff of the neck. If you can imagine my soul personality, grabbed by the scruff of the neck, and forced me to actually go certain places. So I would say, look at this, look at that. And they'd make sure I'd notice. And they actually brought me into the place where they had the fetuses, where the fetuses were growing, and where they had the abductions taking place, where the ladies had fetuses in them that were being transferred to these test tube type things. And, and the ladies were quite panicky and upset, and the Greys were trying to deal the best way they can. They wanted me to see the whole thing. They actually had my consciousness, which was felt like my head, go into the uterus of this woman, a white woman. It was very interesting, and actually follow the baby out of the uterus as it was taken out and put in this like tube type thing. I mean, actually like inside her body and come out. And they wanted me to see absolutely every element of it. And then they wanted me, and actually they forced me. I really didn't have a choice. It was really quite a surprising thing. I had a monitor at the time, and the monitor was as surprised as I was. Really, the session got sort of taken over. Mm-hmm. It was the target. That was the target. It was supposed to go inside this ship. But then they had me go into the lady's mind and go back in time to before she was born. And she very calmly said, okay, no, this is great. I'm going to do this. This is something. She was trying to help them out. You see, the Zetas are trying to, or were trying to rebuild their race. Their whole society was going extinct. It was dying. And they needed help with humanity, essentially we would become their parents. And they were sort of dysfunctional emotionally. They had destroyed their own planet, destroyed their own history, destroyed their own society, and then had sort of a nervous reaction to it. And so they essentially emotionally castrated themselves, in the sense that they cut out the genetics that gave them emotions. And they became sort of emotionless. They couldn't experience that because they blamed their emotions, their sexual attraction, their selfishness, that type of thing, on the demise of their whole planet and their society. And they became clones. They reproduced asexually, but they did advance spiritually enormously. They were trying to advance, and they thought that their genetics, with all that sensuality and anger and everything like that, was holding them back. So they clipped that all out so that they would just focus spiritually. On another remote viewing session, I actually went into the mind of a Zeta and I actually experienced that. And I must admit, they really did refine that. It's like they have experienced spirituality at a level that we can't even dream about. I mean, it's like when they look into the universe, it's like the clearest water that you've ever seen. Like you can hear a pin drop on the other end of the universe, and it's unbelievably beautiful. And you have to actually be in their mind and share that vision to see why it was so attractive to them. But they lost the physical experience. They lost the personality that was developing, and they needed it back. They were at a cul-de-sac. They couldn't go forward. And so humanity was what they were looking toward. They were looking to us for help. So we were thinking of ourselves as victims being abducted. But in reality, this lady had given her permission, totally, voluntarily, knowing full well that when she was human, she would totally forget that she had given her permission. And and the Zetas were besides themselves. They were saying, what are we supposed to do? I mean, she said we could do this, and she said it would be okay. She's upset with us.
Right.
And so it was a very interesting experience. But here is a situation where they dragged me around the whole ship and made me see everything. They weren't trying to hold anything back. Everything was out there. And
well, let me ask you this. Because of those intrinsic things that you're talking about, sex, emotion, laughter, whatever. What about, was there music, or was there art on the wall? Did they concern themselves with that aspect of life?
But the inside of the ship was very pretty. It was very beautiful in the sense it was all shiny and neat and germless and nice control panels and stuff like that. But there was no Da Vinci on the wall.
No Da Vinci. No
there
Van
was nothing
Halen.
like that. And they were asexual. They didn't even feel sex. They didn't even go there. They don't even understand it. They're sort of like, what is this all about? And they're scared of it.
What about humor? What about humor and laughter?
No, they don't get jokes. They don't get jokes. However, the hybrid program, which brings about the other race, the new race called the Essassani, who, that's Bashar. Bashar is an Essassani. He's a hybrid. They're half us. We're their parents. That's no joke. We are their parents. By the way, if you talk to... I know you have to consider this hearsay because I can't bring the generals in front of you to question. I mean, hearsay is something where I'm saying I heard something, but I can't bring the people in front of me. And that doesn't stand up in a court of law. So you just have to dismiss it. But I'll tell you anyway. I mean, I've been in room with 2-star generals, colonels all the way down, where they talk about this openly. And if you say well, what, I'm talking, there's a 2-star general here talking about this stuff. What if I go out and say, hey, look, so-and-so 2-star general was talking about the reality of the ETs? They'll just look at you and say, go ahead, do it. I'll just deny it later and you'll look like a fool. I mean, what are you going to do? So it's like, they're not in a big issue with that. But I am telling you point blank, this whole thing about the extraterrestrial content, the government has a huge amount of contact, and some of it is easier than others. Some of it is difficult. Some of it is really great. Some of it is very supportive. But they know all about this issue with the problem with the Zetas and the need to have this. But anyway, Bashar is an Essassani, and if you listen to Bashar through Darlanka, you'll hear the whole story. And Bashar is half human and half Zeta, and he has all those things that we talk about. He has a great personality. He's lots of fun, understands humor, jokes. I mean, he's very much like us in that sense. The only thing I would say that's sort of a little weird about him is that he's so good of a personality. He doesn't really have the anger that we get. Like, we get ticked off and pissed off at things. And he's amazingly tolerant, more tolerant than most humans. So what they basically did was they clipped out some of the things in the human personality that they were afraid of, like the quickness to anger. So if you're talking with Bashar, you're going to have a great time talking with him. But what you'll miss is him having a really nasty day. But if you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend and you love the person and you're having great times with them, you know that eventually a day is going to come along where you're going to have a spat and you'll be throwing things at each other. That doesn't seem to happen with Bashar. Now, maybe it does, and he just doesn't show that when he channels, but they seem to have been selective in the types of emotions that they're willing to allow themselves to experience. They're scared. Basically, they're scared. They don't want the whole human experience. That's why they don't want to be born as humans. They could easily do that, but it's tough. And there have been former Zetas that have come into the human experience, and they have a difficult time. And the Zetas who are not there, they both admire their colleagues that gave it a shot, but don't want to go there. They want
right.
And so the Essassani is a sort of a mixture. It's the parts of humanity that they like and the parts of humanity that were a little bit too close to the way the Zetas were before they were Zetas, when they destroyed their whole planet. Those elements of humanity, the destructive elements, they clipped those out. They didn't want to experience that. I think they were just a little bit afraid of that. But they do have a good sense of humor.
What about a connection to Mars with the Zetas? Were you able to get any information there?
From all the remote viewing sessions that we've done, both me personally, but also with Dick and Daz, there's no evidence of Zetas at all. Martians were us. They look like us. They sound like us. They didn't use English, but they There's no evidence. At no point does Daz or Dick say these people have weird shaped heads or anything like that.
Right.
They just look like us.
Interesting. Let's take a quick break right here for 2 minutes, and then when we come back, you want to take some phone calls?
Sure.
Let's do this, man. I have such a good time when you're on the show. Thank you so much, Courtney. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses on the Game Changer Network. KGRA, The Planet. Tonight, Dr. Courtney Brown, the Farsight Institute, farsight.org, O-R-G. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be back. Let's take some phone calls. Opening up the phone lines, 323-825-5045. We'll be back right after this.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Attention, all Fader Knots. Studio Dome has a special deal on their SD1 Bluetooth speaker. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on their banner, enter the promo code Jimmy, and you get $40 off and free shipping on the SD1. It's voice activated, comes with a USB antenna, cables, and a carry bag. Never listen to your phone, tablet, or laptop speakers ever again. It's the only way to listen to Fade to Black. That's jimmychurchradio.com, Studio Dome banner, promo code Jimmy. Go Beckley Teppy.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. May arrives soon, and with it comes another Contact in the Desert. So join me in Joshua Tree, California, for the 3rd annual Contact in the Desert Conference being held May 29th through the 31st. 2015 brings another awesome lineup of speakers, including publisher of Legendary Times, Giorgio Tsoukalos, New York Times bestselling author David Wilcock, journalist and conspiracy expert Jim Mars, former head of UFO Project for the MOD Nick Pope, investigative reporter Linda Moulton Howe, author and contactee Travis Walton, UFO historian Richard Dolan, and many more. You don't want to miss this. Fade to Black and KGRA will be there broadcasting live May 29th. Just visit contactinthedesert.com for tickets and information. That's contactinthedesert.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Courtney Brown. Phone lines are open. 323-825-5045. Let's go straight to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Courtney Brown. Who's calling?
This is Walt from Idaho.
Hi, Walt from Idaho.
Yeah, I've had a strange life, and I kept it secret for many years. I'm 68, and I decided to talk before I got too old and died. And I'm kind of sorry I started talking about it, but what he says is true. There's some strange people out there. I guess I'm one of them. And I was wondering if I tried to avoid these, abilities, and I tried to keep it secret. It worked pretty good for a long time. But then I decided to talk. Has he have any idea of what percentage of people have been abducted or altered? And was I altered or was I born this way? That's a good question.
Thank you, Walter. Great question. Courtney, what's the percentage of people that have this gift?
Actually, well, he's actually not asked about the remote viewing gift, but the number of people who have been abducted by aliens, so to speak. And I'm not a UFO researcher in that sense. I don't really study. I do know that the entire abduction phenomenon, as it was called, has ended. It's over, meaning the Essassani race, whatever it is, the hybrid race is finished. So that's sort of a done deal. But it was a period of time when that stuff was going on. And rumor has it that the U.S. government knew that this was going on and had allowed it to happen in exchange for technology transfer and help out with some of the ships that crashed, re-engineering them and fixing them and stuff like that. I don't know if that's true, but it certainly, I heard it from an awful lot of sources, some of which are pretty highly placed. So I'm assuming it may be true. But I'm not the type of person to be able to know that information. I just do remote viewing. One of the things I have known over the years is that it's only useful to talk about things that you know about. And I may have anecdotal information, hearsay information about some of the other things. And I hear a lot of people, especially in the UFO field, talking about things that turned out to be quite anecdotal. I mean, nothing really to back it up. And I don't want to go into that category. So what I do is I say, we do remote viewing studies. We have done XYZ. Here are the data that we've got. It's really verifiable. You see how we did it. We do it live on video. You can see the whole thing yourself, as with the Cydonia stuff. And this stuff we know about. Now, that means there's a lot of stuff that we're not talking about that we don't know about, but we're just like you. We wonder the same questions, but we don't have solid answers for that stuff. So rather than try to impress you that I'm a know-it-all, I'd rather tell you that, hey, I don't know. There's some things I don't know. I do know the abduction thing happened. The information that I have from personal gathering seems to indicate that it was voluntary on the part of the people who participated, but that the people, when they participated, didn't remember that, because that's part of being human. You don't remember what you were doing beforehand. That's the unique part about being human. You forget things. Your memory is gone. And so this abduction thing seems sort of scary for us, but apparently we knew it was going to be scary going into it. And the Zetas apparently do the best they can under very difficult circumstances. These are people that they had a relationship with before they became human and everything was fine. And then they go bonkers when the abduction thing goes on and they say, what are we supposed to do? But in reality, that was part of the birthing process for another race. And now time doesn't really exist. So we have all of eternity to sort these problems out or these issues out. So just because I can't answer your question doesn't mean that you'll never get an answer. Eternity is a really, really, really long time. So yes. You'll get that answer to that question one day.
Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Courtney Brown. Who's calling?
Brad from Hemet.
Hi, Brad from Hemet. How are you?
Pretty good. How you doing, Jimmy?
Everything's good, Brad.
All right. I got a question for you, Courtney. Do you pretty much have the same take on the beings from Mars as Joseph McMoneagle? Because Joe McMoneagle, I don't like to talk about people I don't actively work with because they do their own stuff, and Joe does his own stuff. But he's really great. I mean, he was one of the early remote viewers, one of the pioneers. He's really good as a remote viewer also. And he really helped transform the field. He was the first person that came out with a book about this type of stuff, about this remote viewing sort of field and his experiences in the military unit. So I have a tremendous amount of admiration for him, but I don't like to talk about him because he doesn't work with me, so I don't really have firsthand information about him. I've met him a few times. He's a wonderful guy. He's a great personality, but I don't want to speak for him. He's available for his own interviews to do it. I can speak for Dick Algire to some extent and Daz Smith to some extent because they do remote viewing in projects that I'm working on. So I have, direct contact with them during these things, and I can explain what we did and how we did it. But I don't have the pleasure of being able to say that with Joe McMoneagle. However, I will say that I read all his books. And okay. his book has one of his early books, his first book actually has a chapter on Mars. And a lot that's in that chapter corresponds with, especially the idea of an ancient civilization and so on, corresponds with stuff that we get. Right. He was speaking about the beings being like 8 to 9 feet tall, maybe taller. But the pictures in, I think it was the book Mind Trek, they were very tall, very slender. I guess they were human-like, like us. But does that kind of jive with what you got, or?
No, the remote viewing that we have done at Farsight with Dick and Daz, they didn't report any
abnormal physical characteristics or unusual physical characteristics for these people. On the other hand, in my own book, Cosmic Voyage, well, you know, that's Joe's take on it. I don't really want to. I don't want to we don't really know. Eventually, we'll find out exactly what these beings look like, with like camera images, pictures, and stuff like that. Right. We don't really know now. In the ruins, I am sure there's statues. I'm sure there's pictures. They had a high level of technology. I'm sure buried in those ruins are some images in some way. So we don't really know. We don't really have to figure out who's right and who's wrong with regard to what the Martians actually looked like. So the only thing I can... Well, you know, all I can say is that in the studies that we have done here, the remote viewers have never described the Martians as being physically different in the way they looked. They look very much like us. When Dick and Daz saw these people, and they have seen other extraterrestrials, and those beings look different. And when they look different, they describe them as different. Like the praying mantis lady in the Giza Project, Dick was very, very clear. This is a praying mantis lady. I mean, he was unambiguous in what he was saying. With the Martians, we don't get anything like that. Now, that doesn't mean that that we're right and Joe's wrong. I mean, it doesn't mean anything like that. It's just that these are the data we have, and we just leave them as they are. So, you know, Joe could be right. I mean, we just don't really know. But the important element to take from this is that there does seem to be a strong corroboration of an ancient advanced civilization on Mars.
Yeah, and there could be two races, too, as well, and two different time spots. Hey, Brad, thanks for the call, my brother.
Okay, Jimmy, take care. Thanks, Courtney.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Norik. How are you? Say hi to Courtney Brown.
Hi, Courtney. Hi, Jimmy.
How you doing?
So I'm doing pretty good. I have a couple of questions. I wanted to get them in, and I'll take my answer offline. Just two questions. The first one is, many psychics have talked about not being able to see the future due to some sort of issue with 2013 and going forward. Have you had any issues with this or any opinions on this topic? And the second question is, if you're able to remote view any large contact event in the future, for example, the Phoenix Lights or anything significant like that, would you tell us about it? Could you give us any hints, or have you foreseen anything?
Two great questions. Thank you so much, Norik.
We have this project that we're involved in right now. Its first part is Cydonia. The second part is a facility on Iapetus. And let me tell you, we explain in the Cydonia part, we explain the whole backstory of Cydonia. There's no ambiguity about what it is. And the whole issue of what Cydonia is and what that thing was, we explain. With the next project that you're going to see coming out, it's actually, all the remote viewing is done for it. It's all in the can. We're doing the video on it now. It's about this facility in Iapetus. And I guess I'll tell you right now, the third part of the project that you'll see come out in July, all the remote viewing is done, and we explain everything. The whole story is the Phoenix Lights. So I can say, just be patient.
Wow.
We'll tell you everything.
Wow,
the whole story.
You just dropped a bomb, man.
Yeah, it's a big deal. We're putting that out in July, and we got everything.
What about if you did see something in the future? Would you disclose it?
Well, that whole issue of can't being able to see in the future is just an emotional issue. That's not real. The reality is that when you're living in a frequency-based universe, as we are, there is nothing physical. Everything is frequency. And so when you're talking about remote viewing in the past, present, or future, the things don't bump into one another, even though they simultaneously exist, because it's all on a level of frequency. Just like somebody can be listening to you on one station in the AM dial, but another station is not bumping into it because it's somewhere else on the AM dial or the FM dial. So with regard to the past, present, and the future, since everything's separated by frequency, they're separated. Well, that is similarly true with regard to alternate timelines. There's nothing, this is part of the other worlds interpretation developed originally by Hugh Everett, a physicist who studied under John Wheeler in Princeton, that there are infinite number of timelines, but going back as well as forward. And so when you're talking about timelines, there are versions in the past where there were no wars in the 20th century. It was peaceful. And they are as real as our version is that we remember. And there is another version where, say, the brown shirts end up walking down Fifth Avenue, or that the world ends with nuclear destruction at the end of World War II. And those are as real as the version that we remember. The issue with remote viewing in the past is when you're remote viewing with the intent of satisfying the informational needs of the tasker, the person who's picking the target.
Right.
And that person has a very clear memory of what she or he wants you to remote view, knows exactly what happened. So if you're to remote view the sinking of the Titanic, that tasker knows exactly what she or he wants, which is the knowledge that the Titanic sunk. He's not tasking the version of reality in which the Titanic didn't sink and it ended up docking in the United States. So you get only one timeline when you go back. It doesn't mean that the other timelines don't exist, but you can select one out of an infinity of timelines. With the future, it's exactly the same, except the tasker doesn't know what's going to happen. So you don't know what's going to happen in the future because it hasn't happened yet. And it doesn't mean that the future is any different than the past. There's multiple timelines in the future, but you're going into it black. You just don't know. We did a year-long study called the Multiple Universes Project, literally to examine this. And the theory was that if we do the sessions first, meaning there's no target when the sessions are done, and we take the sessions, we encrypt them in 256K bit encryption, and then distribute them military-grade encryption, and then distribute them all over the planet, let everybody keep the sessions on their hard drives, and then 2 months later, actually 3 months later, let a tasker, an assigned person, which was Glenn Wheaton or Lynn Buchanan, the people who ran the HRVG remote viewing group and the CRV, pick a target from the middle month. So that target would have been anything that happened on the planet Earth, but it would have been after the remote viewers did their sessions and were distributed all over the planet.
Right.
But it would be before the tasker picked the target. So for the tasker, it was in the past, but for the remote viewer, is in the future. In those cases, the remote viewers hit the target describing a future event perfectly every single time. We published those results in the Journal for Scientific Exploration, which is a peer-reviewed journal, a major publication, and that paper can be found on our website at www.farsight.org, and you can actually see and read the paper. And that was a real milestone. So you see, it is possible to remote view the future, but the only way we know of to select one timeline out of a multiplicity of timelines is to have the person picking the target being someone who's cooperating with you in the future. So you can do the sessions now and perfectly describe a future event perfectly. I mean, every time. I mean, it really works well with the same level of accuracy as if you're describing a present-day target or a past target. But the person picking the target has to know the timeline they're looking for, which means the event has to be in their past, which means that the tasker has to be somebody in the future who's cooperating with the experiment. So that means, like right now we say, okay, Lynn Buchanan, you're going to be the tasker, but don't pick it yet. Wait 3 months.
Right.
Let's do it. So we do the sessions now. It's a very complicated procedure, but you can see it on our website. We have all the data up and everything in the papers is published. You can see there. It's a very fascinating thing. So there's no boogeyman stopping people from seeing the future, but being able to control what you see into the future is totally different. Now, let's say some natural psychic is sort of saying, I'm seeing a wall, I can't see into the future. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe really what's really going on is they have their own set of anxiety. They have some sort of thought about the future being a major shift to the civilization or whatever so on. And so they're sort of consciously blacking out any particular intent for any particular timeline, or they're consciously sort of assuming, chaos or something. But I don't know what's going on in their mind. But we're the only ones who have actually done studies on remote viewing this future using these very sophisticated methodologies. And the results are really clear. It is not difficult to remote view the future. The only trouble is picking the timeline, and the only way we have discovered to do that is to have the tasker located in the future. That person's called a temporal outbounder. That's the only way we've figured out how to get around the multiple timeline issue.
You've just blown my forehead straight off my mainframe here. I have to get two questions in. One, before I let you go, from Cortana. And she says, are there hybrids among us right now?
I am sure, but I have no evidence of this. I mean, I cannot say that I've talked to them or whatever. However, I will say this much. Hybrids definitely exist. I have I have some personal experience along these lines, but they definitely exist. And I have a daughter who's a hybrid, and I've met her. I know her. So, I mean, but that's another whole thing. But so they exist, and they're real people, and you'd be as proud of them as you'd be as proud as anybody. But the issue is, what do you do? Are they here? No, most of them are not here. But if you were an extraterrestrial civilization and you had to interact with humanity for some reason, if you had ways to make some of your people sort of blend in with society, wouldn't you do it? I mean, they do it on the show Star Trek. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's hybrids here, but have I ever met an extraterrestrial physical human being on Earth knocking on my door? No. When I was a child, I saw a UFO once, but that's it. Most of my contacts have been with regard to doing remote viewing stuff, except for some, personal stuff.
We need to talk. We need to do a whole nother show just on that one statement. One more question. Or I should say, answer.
We won't. But honestly, we won't get a show out of that. There's some things I don't talk about.
I can tell. The dramatic pause and license right there said just that. Not a problem. This is from Dandy. And please ask Courtney, have you ever run into shadow people?
No, I'd love to, though. I love things like that.
What about ghost and the other side when you're remote viewing? Is that possible too as well? I mean, when we're talking about another dimension, certainly is that possible?
Well, yeah, we have had experiences where remote viewers describe the soul aspect of someone emerging from a body during the death experience. So we have experience, especially during wartime situations.
Sure.
Where you're remote viewing large battles where a lot of people have died. So we do have experiences like that. But that's normally not what we focus on.
Yeah, could that be a target? Let me give you an example. What about like the ghost of Houdini? I'm just pulling something out of thin air here, but could you target that?
Sort of. Jimmy, we're getting into something dangerous here, and that is talking about possible things that we might end up doing.
Okay.
And I don't want to be in a situation of lying. And whenever it comes to a point where I talk about what we might do, you see, if we haven't already done it,
that ruins it.
If we haven't already done it, like the Cydonia thing and other things, then the issue is, will we do it? Or if you're saying, could it be done, then you're really asking, will we do it? Because if we can answer the question, could we do it, we have to say, well, we've given it a try. Otherwise, we don't really know. And so we're a little bit on dangerous territory here because there's an awful lot of plans of things that we have in the works. And anything that's even closely resembling the something that we may try, I'm obligated to lie about. Because if the remote viewers ever heard about anything
it's contaminated,
that we might do it, it's contamination, we can't do it. So anything dealing with any subject of what we might do or what could be done, if we haven't already done it, I have to punt on that question because
so you know what?
Because,
that means I can't say. So, what's in the future for Courtney Brown and Farsight?
That's exactly right. Now, in the past, I've unabashedly exploited that question when it's been asked before. Like, what's your next project? Are you going to do 9/11? We want to know about 9/11. When that was asked before with many people, many radio hosts, I used to say, "Oh, 9/11? No. We have military people on our board of directors. There's no way. We know for sure the government does not want us to do that. There's fishy stuff regarding that. We obey the rules. We're good players. We'll never, ever do that." And I was lying through my teeth. I knew full well we were going to do that. I was just waiting for the opportunity. But if I said that on radio, I could never do the project.
Right.
So anything even vaguely hinting at the idea that maybe it might be interesting. I can't even vaguely hint at something. So it's not that the question you asked is something that specifically we're planning to do, but my little warning light goes off whenever it's something that we haven't already done. If we haven't already done, then I have to say, I have to punt on it or lie.
Hey, Courtney,
and I don't want to lie.
Yeah, let me cut you. One last call. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Courtney Brown. Who's calling? Make it quick. We've got 2 minutes.
Hi, this is John from lead singer of Fat Queen. Just showing out to all the Fader Knights out there tonight. And after listening to tonight's show, I just really wanted to say that I found it extremely insightful and everything, but what I really wanted just to express to everyone that even though we have a lot of things going on and there's a lot of stuff that we don't really know about, I think the biggest thing that we really need to focus in is peace and really try to express peace and love, just so that so we can have more of a universality of love amongst everybody. So that, if we are, if we have people visiting us, if there are things going on, that they see us as a good people and not necessarily as, our history and things that we have previously have been known to do in our history. And I really want to thank Courtney. It's been an excellent show, and I just wanted to close it out with that. And thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you, John. Thank you for that. Great phone call, actually. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
You too. Take care.
There's one small thing I could add to that, as if it was a question with regard to the peace and stuff like that. The greatest hindrance that we have with respect to our future is not the bad things that we blame ourselves for doing, but it's fear. Fear is the thing that stops us from moving into a positive future. Now, if you look at our society, we have an adrenaline fix on fear. Look at all the major news. Go to CNN. Go to all the major publications. Look at the stories, one after the next. It's one killer storm, one terrorist attack,
right?
One Holocaust, one this, one that after the next. Adrenaline attack. And it's like we're going after, literally, we're going after a drug fix for this fear. So whenever you talk about the aliens, you're really talking about movies where it's expressed that they're hostile. People are going to be doing X, Y, Z. There's wars going on. They're fighting. They're trying to control us. They're taking us over with this, that, and the other thing. Fear is the thing that stops us. So if you want a future with peace, what you're really talking about is the absence of fear. Letting that go is the key.
Thank you so much, Courtney. I can't wait to get you back on. Always a great show. Thank you so much. What a great show tonight.
Thank you, Jimmy.
We rolled all the way to the credits, Courtney Brown. Thank you so much. I'll be in touch tomorrow. Have a great night.
Great. Okay.
Courtney Brown, everybody. Thank you, Courtney. Went to the very end Thank you, Courtney Brown. Fade to Black's executive producers, Rita Kamarian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee, Mark Dunbar, and Jonas. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Fady by Dale. Webmaster is Method of Signaling. Music, Doug Aldridge. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Tomorrow night is Fader Night. Thank you, Dr. Courtney Brown. Thank you, Dick Aglar. And just everybody, all the phone calls. Everything was great. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Be safe. See ya.